I have some signed up also.
Wonderful. Are they for cases or for just public comment?
Both.
Have at it, Amy.
All right. John McLean first, and following Mr. McLean will be Rick Lowry.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
John
John.
McLean, Egret Street. I'm sure you're aware, but I'm put my application in to join this wonderful group of people. I think it's a really critical time, and I believe that, you know, the skills that you all have are very specific and incredible, and that's perhaps not me, but I've got a great deal of business experience, and I think I'm a very pragmatic, collaborative person. When I approach things, I think very deeply about them. I have a great love for this island. I certainly am not anti-development, but I'm also not unfettered development. So I hope that I get the opportunity to learn from you and serve with you. I'd like to offer, if any of you would like to speak with me individually, happy to, you know, I don't have your numbers, but my number is 239-314-9996. And if you would
Everybody
like to speak
call
with
him.
me, I'm
Just call him.
very happy. Oh, by the way, I'm also pretty recently retired, so I do have the time and obviously the interest. I'm here almost every meeting, so I have the time and the interest to serve, and I would be honored to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
Rick Lowry.
Rick, what'd you do to your hand? I don't remember seeing that
Just an
Saturday.
old injury. I'm trying to keep it from getting worse.
Okay.
I'm just basically leaving this comment in general because I want to apply to everybody who comes before me for this certain item. When it comes to music on the beach, you know, we came to Fort Myers Beach 20 some years ago, and me and Amy fell in love with the fact that we could go out and enjoy live music on a regular basis. The problem being now that the establishments are mostly gone, we run into the problem where me and Amy are workers. We work all day, we get home late, we eat dinner, a couple of minutes to do our chores, and then we get to go out. By the time we go out, the bars are already shutting down these days. The music's over and we've got nowhere to go. We've got nowhere to let that go. And that makes it difficult because that's one of the main reasons, and the vibe of the beach is the music, the scene, the enjoyment. And me and Amy love to dance. That's part of our lives. And to not have that is very difficult now, because when we go out, even after the gala the other night, we searched for a place where we could dance and have a good time together. They don't exist. So anytime that something comes up in front of you guys that lets us have a little more later music, if someone asks for it, please give it to them, because we are starving for a place to let go. And some of us have to work a little later and do things a little later, and we don't have the opportunity to get out at 7, 8 o'clock. By the time we get out, it's 9, 10 o'clock, and everybody's shutting off at this point. And it's just, it feels like us locals are getting pushed to go somewhere else, and it doesn't feel right. So I implore you guys that anytime someone asks for music to be a little bit later so that we can enjoy it as locals and be able to let go just a little bit, please consider us. And those who are opposing it, understand that us locals, we need that. We need you to understand our situation too. We need to have some of that let go time. And we're working our tails off to try and bring this town back. Give us a few hours. I know it you know, makes a little noise a little later than you're used to, but we're in a commercial zone down there. When we bought our property on Fort Myers Beach, we knew exactly where we were purchasing and why we were purchasing there. And I have to think that if you purchased up in a commercial area, that you expected to enjoy that. So I'm not sure what the issues are, but please, please consider the fact that there are other locals who want that extra time to enjoy themselves and be with their other half and enjoy their time here on the beach. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else, Amy?
That's all I have signed up. I have some for different hearings. But
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to make a general comment? All right. Thank you very much. The next set of hearings are all quasi-judicial in nature, and I'm going to let Nancy say her lovely little speech.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. We still have a little bit left of the morning. Okay, so as the chair indicated, the next items on the agenda today are quasi-judicial in nature. And so what this is requiring our public hearing to comply with some procedural requirements that have been established in Florida law as well as in our land development code. So a quasi judicial proceeding is less formal than a circuit court proceeding, but it's more formal than perhaps some of the other meetings that you've attended or some of the other hearings that the LPA has. We follow basic standards of due process, and under due process requirements, there are certain notices that need to be made. They are required to apply the correct standards in rendering their decisions, and their decisions have to be made on competent and substantial evidence that is presented to them either in writing or through oral testimony. Once it's presented to them, again, either in writing or orally, they're going to evaluate that documentation, that evidence for each item, and then they're going to draw a conclusion as to whether the criteria in the Land Development Code or in state law has been satisfied. So pure speculation or your mere opinion has not been considered by the courts as competent and substantial evidence. Therefore, it's not going to be persuasive to them as a decision maker. However, testimony by individuals who are qualified to give testimony as professionals in a particular area, as well as residents of the community that have personal knowledge of whatever they're testifying to, or they have fact-based information to share, that has been viewed by Florida courts as competent and substantial evidence and would be very persuasive to the LPA in rendering their decision. So if you intend to speak, please keep these things in mind. When you come forward, we're going to ask that you state your name clearly for the record and whether or not you've been sworn in and your qualifications or your interest in the matter. And for purposes of efficiency for these hearings that you have today, we're going to go through a couple housekeeping items at the get-go so we don't have to do it for each item. It expedites our hearing a little bit. So my first question is going to be directed to our town clerk. Amy, has all the items been properly noticed?
Yes, they have.
Okay. And does anyone on the LPA have a conflict of interest which would prohibit them from voting on any of the items? Please disclose this for the record and the nature of your conflict.
Does then,
I do.
Patrick?
I'll have to recuse myself for the item associated with the whale.
And that would be item number
B?
B?
My
Okay.
firm is working with the applicant on Sandy Bottoms, not the current project before us today, but it's the same applicant, same client for our firm. And also for the 7-Eleven
Item E?
item, again, my firm, Ken Galander, is representing that client.
Thank you, Patrick. Anyone else have any disclosures of conflict of interest? No one else, Nancy. Well,
Thank
we'll have
you.
to ask Doug when he comes in, but
Okay. And so with his recusal based on his voting conflict, we still have a quorum present. So we'll be able to proceed with those items. For members of the public, Patrick is also required to file a disclosure form, which he has. He's filed it with the clerk, and it'll be attached to the minutes of the next, the minutes of this meeting to be reviewed at the next meeting. So with that said, if there's anyone willing or intending to give testimony today, we would like to swear you in at this point. So if you could please stand and raise your right hand, and the clerk will. Yes, anybody who's going to give public comment in
on any of the
these-
cases.
any of these cases.
So y'all might as well all stand up if you want
Yes.
to talk.
We call it the all swear. John, stand up. You're probably going to say something.
Y'all, you know,
All right.
y'all want to talk. All right. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? The whole lot's been sworn.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And having your testimony sworn is basically another indica that it is competent and substantial evidence. I mean, we use that as part of the argument to support whatever the local planning agency decides on a particular case. So with that said, Madam Mayor, if you'd like to, Madam Mayor, I'm so sorry.
Former Madam Mayor, current chair.
Madam
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. Thank you very much, Nancy. The first hearing on our list is Resolution 2442 SEZ 202-30-280-102 Estero Boulevard. This is the Pink Shell. Is anybody here representing the Pink Shell? It's, yes. But
She's here for public.
you're here for public comment. So is the applicant here? Yes, but
Are you
wait,
presenting?
no. Sarah?
It was actually, I believe, the condominium board that applied, and she
Okay,
submitted paperwork.
perfect. Okay,
Madam Chair?
yes,
Can we read the resolution into the record?
yes. You want to go ahead and do that?
Okay. This is for Resolution 24-42, SEZ 20230280102 Estero Boulevard. This will be a recommendation for a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, denying a special exception, SEZ 2023028 to allow the reconstruction of a pool deck, fences and walls, grill area, footprint station, lighting and beach access path in the environmentally critical EC zoning district with conditions for the property located at 102 Estero Boulevard, providing for scrivener's error, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you, Nancy. And I apologize. I had this just jumbled up in my head for a minute. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
It's very similar to other cases.
Yes, yes. And I just went, what? Okay.
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. Pink Shell Vacation Villas, located at 102 Estero Boulevard, has applied for a special exception to allow the replacement or repair of accessory structures that were in the environmentally critical zoning district on the common element portion of the condominium property prior to Hurricane Ian. These structures include a pool deck, pool fence and knee wall, an at-grade paver path to the beach, a foot rent station, and a grill area including lighting, pavers, and movable grills. No gas connection is proposed. The grill area is being proposed approximately 8 feet closer to the side lot line, not the beach. The applicant is requesting this special exception through the ordinance amendment to section 34-652E that allows reconstruction or renewal of primary structures and major accessory structures partially or fully within the EC zoning district, with the approval of a special exception. The EC zoning district is the EC zoning district is the land seaward of the 1978 Coastal Construction Control Line called the CCCL. This condominium was constructed in 1976 prior to the creation of the 1978 CCCL. The applicants are not proposing any additional development in the EC beyond what was in existence prior to Hurricane Ian. Staff is available for any questions you have, and the applicant is also here.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Does anyone have any ex parte communications on this case? Patrick?
None.
How about you, Don?
No.
Jane?
No.
Jim?
None.
I don't have any either. Questions for Sarah?
Just one, I think the grill area was the only thing that's moving, right? That's the only thing that's
Yes.
changing.
Yes.
And it's going closer to the coastal construction line?
No, it's going closer. That part of the island sort of curves up. So the south property
Oh.
line is actually the side property
Okay.
line. So it's not closer to the beach. It's just 8 feet closer to the side property line.
Thank you.
I've got a question also. So my understanding from the application is all these different accessory uses and structures are maybe damaged, but they're existing. So it's not like the area is being cleared and they're rebuilding.
I don't believe that's the intent. All of those
Okay.
structures are still partially there. You would have to ask the applicant what their plan is on how that construction will go forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
And now we'll have the applicant.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Kathy Schultz, and I'm here to represent the board and the pool repair committee at Vacation Villas, 100 Estero Boulevard. Vacation Villas is a small 30-unit condominium at the very north end of Estero Island. Many owners there have owned for decades or are the children of original owners. My parents bought there in 1980, so it's been part of my life for 44 years. As Ms. Probst stated, Vacation Villas was built in 1976 before the establishment of the 1978 CCCL, and we're seeking a special exception to allow for the repair of the damage done by Hurricane Ian to the pool deck, pool walls and fences, a small grill area, a foot wash station, and an at-grade beach access path. The repairs we require are minimal. The pool shell is stable and not cracked, but the pool requires resurfacing because it was scratched and had that sludgy water in it. Pavers for the pool deck will be installed on top of the existing poured concrete deck to level it off. All items will be repaired like for like to substantially the same size they were prior to Ian. And we're simply seeking to rebuild what we had before the storm. We really appreciate the time and effort you all, the LPA, the town council, and town staff have put into facilitating our community's recovery. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Kathy, thank you for the effort you're putting into your property to help get that back on board. I know everybody appreciates that too, so thank you. Are there any questions for Kathy?
I'll ask the question again, but I think you've answered it. So what you're doing is mostly repair, not replacement of existing.
It's mostly repair. I mentioned the pool and the pool deck, the grill area and foot wash were pavers, so they got lifted up by the storm and they're sort of in a heap where they are. And we're moving the grill area a little bit away from the CCCL so that in a future storm, the runoff won't come down under the building and create the damage that it did.
Hasn't any of this work been done yet?
No.
Thank you. Jim, any questions for Kathy?
No question.
Dawn, questions for Kathy?
No questions.
Okay, Kathy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your presentation. Any follow-up questions for Sarah? If not,
Has the
discussion?
applicant been told the conditions for approval? Have you?
Kathy, have you read the staff report? Will you come back up for a moment?
Sorry. I
Have you
meant
read
to
the
ask
staff
that.
report and are you, and just let the record show that Doug is joining us now. He's rounding the bend. Kathy, did you read the conditions for approval for this request?
We've read the staff report. There was a small discrepancy on the staff report, which Sarah and I discussed, because I think the staff report said turtle season started March 1st, and it starts May 1st.
Okay.
Our pool contractor has also read the staff report.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathy.
Yes, I apologize. I should have mentioned that that was one of the items that we had discussed, that I had the turtle season starting on the wrong month. So that will be
At
corrected
least you
for the
picked
town
an M,
council.
you know, that's good.
It was close.
All right, Sarah. Any further discussion on this?
Only one correction, I think. Is the resolution, did it say Laguna Shores? Is this the one? I saw one of them that was, it said, not Laguna Shores. Leonardo Arms.
Yeah, I saw somewhere.
Yeah, it was, I think that's just a typo or something. Maybe that resolution was used, so we need to just correct that.
Yeah, I'll double check that and make sure it's corrected. Thank you.
Just quick discussion on my part. The reason I was asking about the repairs is, in my mind, if some of these accessory uses were completely destroyed and condo associations had the option to rebuild from scratch, I think as a town, we should be looking at every effort to stay outside of the coastal construction line and not further exacerbate things. In this case and in other cases we've had where they're just repairing, they're trying to put back what was there and they're not starting from scratch, I think that's perfectly acceptable that we approve that. But I think if ever there are condo associations out there that are digging out the pool and starting from scratch, I would recommend that you look for an area landward of the CCCL before you come to us.
Right.
That's the only comment I have.
Okay.
Happy to-
Nancy, let me just ask you a question. Since Doug just came in on this, Should we include him in this and ask him for ex parte? Or do we just let him sit this hearing out for the moment?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I would have
Thank
to
you.
ask Doug, did you have the opportunity to adequately prepare and review the materials that are in your agenda pack?
I think, and I'm sorry I'm late,
That's okay,
The-
Doug.
took like an hour to get from Pine
Across
Ridge
the bridge.
Road to
Mhm.
here. I couldn't.
all know.
Was
Yeah.
totally caught off guard.
Welcome to Fort Myers Beach.
I think I should sit this one out. I don't feel like I'm prepared to vote on it, if that's okay.
Okay. So we're gonna, how would we say we're gonna excuse? I mean, how will
He's just
this?
going to refrain from voting.
He's gonna refrain from voting. Okay. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve. Yep. Say with special conditions
Findings and
of approval
conclusions.
and yeah, I was going to actually read the exception for reconstruction of major accessory structures in the EC. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, EC zoning district and in compliance with item 34-88B1.
Second.
So
And
there's a,
Does conditions of approval, do you want to include those?
Yeah, all 5 conditions that are listed in the staff recommendation.
okay. So there's a motion and a second to approve the request, including the conditions of approval on page 5 of the staff report. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. Don, your vote?
Aye.
Jim?
Yes.
Jane?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
And yes, it passes unanimously, and Doug has refrained. So thank you very much. And congratulations. The next, Oh.
Oh, we forgot public.
did anybody want to talk about that out here? Because I forgot public comment. We can back this up. God, I told you I'm off my game. I was here at 8:30 this morning for this meeting.
I thought it was 9.
Did anybody have public comment on this? God bless you. Okay. All right. We're gonna move on to the next case, which is Resolution 2435, SEZ 202-30052. It is a 6-month review. It's a resolution of the Town Council, the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, or denying the special exception amendment, SEZ 202-352, requesting a 6-month reassessment of previously approved amendments to allow for outdoor alcohol sales and live music, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Do any LPA members have any ex parte on this? Patrick?
None.
Don?
None.
Jane?
None.
Jim?
None.
Doug?
None.
And I have none as well. That's not true. I do have Tom, the gentleman, who's actually a friend of mine's husband, did talk to me as we were walking in the door. So, okay. Hi, Jason.
Hello.
If
Good
you would
morning,
go
LPA
ahead with the staff
members.
report. Thank you.
So my name is Jason Smalley. I'm with your Planning and Zoning Department. So as was mentioned before, today is the 6-month review that was requested by Town Council for the Whale to come back and reassess what, if any, outcomes or mitigation might be needed for their original approval of Resolution 2380. The Town Council, as part of Resolution 2380, passed last year, put conditions on the allowance for outdoor alcohol sales and outdoor music. Those conditions included that they come back after 6 months to assess how everything has gone. Including that was also a limitation on the use of drums, amplified music after 6:30 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and an allowance for Fridays and Saturdays for the outdoor music to be governed by the town's standard noise ordinance. So today we're just here to allow the applicant to sort of give their sort of presentation about how things have gone. As we've prepared for this meeting, we had 2 letters that were sent to us. One letter was in favor of allowing the outdoor music to continue.
again, controlled by the noise ordinance. And one letter that said that they had hoped that the mitigation would be allowed, or excuse me, the mitigation would continue, the reviews would continue, and that they had hoped that the outdoor music would be disallowed once the building had been fully constructed. So we received 2 letters about today's request. Staff is here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Jason. Are there any questions for Jason? Patrick? Don?
Just any complaints? I mean, that staff's aware of.
So we are not aware of any complaints coming in through the notice of violation process. We have received these 2 letters, though.
Okay, thank you.
Jane, questions?
He answered my question.
How about Jim?
One of the letters asked that it not be permanently approved. This is only a request for a 6-month extension.
Correct. At this time, staff is moving forward with the assumption that this will be another 6-month extension, although town council could obviously change their conditions of approval.
Doug, any questions?
Yeah, just to add, so my understanding is this is a temporary measure until their building is reconstructed.
right.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Jason.
And the applicant is here if you
Yes.
would like to ask questions.
That's what we'll ask.
Thank you.
The Whale Ohio State logo. That's very interesting. I like it.
A little disappointed it's not a Boilermaker logo.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that is kind of risky.
My name's Greg Von Krumrig. I'm the general manager and partner of the Whale.
Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. What you have in front of you there is the last 3 months of decibel readings that we've been taking. We take them at the property corner of Palermo and of Primo Drive, and we do this about every half hour approximately whenever we're playing live music. We monitor it for about a minute to a minute and a half, and we record the highest decibel reading that we observe during that time period. I believe that we have satisfied all the parameters that were laid out in the special exceptions amendment. We stop playing live music at 7 p.m. every day during the week, from Sunday to Thursday. Friday and Saturday, we stop at 9 p.m. I do believe that after 6:30, there is something that's mentioned in the special exceptions amendment that we have to limit at 65 decibels past 6:30 p.m., just as a FYI. We would like this extension to be at least 3 more months. We're hoping to break ground within the next 6 weeks, but we would like it to be at least 3 more months. And then ultimately, we would like the special exception to be removed entirely, since most of the special exception had to do with a patio that was built on a building that no longer exists. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg, and I'm happy to hear about the groundbreaking being soon.
We're hoping.
That's very exciting. Doug, you have any questions for Greg?
No, ma'am.
How about you, Jim?
No question.
Jane?
This is a 6-month. You don't want to shorten it just in case you don't get.
6 months
to
is
start.
fine. Like I said, ultimately, it's just to break ground. I believe that was the original intention of the special exception anyway. At the time of that, we were optimistic that it would have been long before 6 months. But as we all know, some things just take a little longer than we expect. So another 6 months is fine, but we realistically should be breaking ground long before
That's
that.
wonderful news. And are you aware of the conditions for approval and that are? Actually, it's the conditions for findings. Okay, so never mind.
Okay,
Condition- no,
questions?
There are conditions for approval,
Yep.
A through F.
Yeah, they would stand. I
Yeah,
would
so you're
think.
familiar
They're
with
the
those
same.
and are okay with those?
Yep.
Okay, super.
I just have
Don?
one question. If you're breaking ground in 6 weeks, what are you doing with the, I mean, let's say you actually hit it in 6 weeks. Are you moving the tent or is it?
We've talked about moving the tent. There's some other things that we have to satisfy with the other property that we've talked about long before we can really decide if we're going to do that or not. But in a perfect world, yes, we would move it down to 2301 Estero Boulevard, which is the old Tuckaway Bagel location, until we
Can't
get
wait.
that property open as well.
That's, and so my question with that is, does this transfer
Hmm.
to that property?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Patrick, any questions for Greg?
None.
Oh, you're out of this anyway.
Yes.
Okay. In only the best of ways. Greg, thank you very much. Don asked you the question I had, which was, what do you anticipate? So once the construction starts or the construction is imminent, does everything that's there go away and then the building starts is what I'm assuming?
Correct. Yeah. From my understanding, we'll need every inch of that property to have for equipment and supplies and the actual building itself.
I can't
so
wait
that
to see
won't we're all very excited.
Yes, I'm sure.
And I also want to note that we have intentions for a state-of-the-art sound system in that building, PA systems, soundproofing. We've spent a lot of time on thinking about noise and music going forward once the building is constructed to mitigate any issues with neighbors.
Greg,
the
have
last-
you or any of your staff had complaints from the neighborhood
Yep.
registered in the tent? Have people come to complain?
Correct. I have made myself very available to most of them, actually to all of them, anyone that's approached me. We have had some issues with a few different neighbors.
What do you do to rectify it?
So generally, that we do to rectify is just turning the sound down. I mean, I guess try to say this nicely here. So it did seem like a few of them were more interested in telling me what to do instead of really being disturbed by it. But that's just my opinion.
Well, sounds subjective, so,
Sure,
you know,
of course.
what's loud to you may not be loud to me and vice
Absolutely.
versa, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, but you have had people come in and complain,
We have.
and you've dealt with it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
And I still, to this day, I'm still very open to working with any of them. They all know that. So I don't believe me, after the last 6 months of going through this, I don't want it to be a continuous thing. So
Okay.
I'm very excited about the building going forward and very excited about hopefully making everybody happy.
There you
Okay.
go. Good
Do you know what the timeline for construction is? How long will it be once you
last
break
I heard
ground?
about a year, 12
Great.
to 14 months.
Great. Okay, thank you so much, Greg. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation. We appreciate it. Hi, Mike.
I don't have to say my name now, do I?
Yes, you do.
Mike Miller, also owner of the Whale. And I just wanted to come up and, let you guys know if you guys have any other deeper questions. Greg pretty much answered quite a few of them about the timelines. We're estimating we're going to put we should have the permit, not the permits, but all the documents to the town probably within 2 weeks. They've actually been working night and day getting the MEPs done so that we can, and we were 3 hours with our architects and AV guys, like where TVs are going to go and everything else, and audio, video, and I think right now they're working with the turtles. They're going to be interviewing them on the beach to see what they want, and we thought about putting a little turtle crossing across the street and help everyone out.
Good deal.
But we're here to make everyone an enjoyable place to be and a good fun atmosphere. Restaurant, pub that we serve hard liquor, we serve beer, we serve Coca-Cola products, and we serve very good food once we reopen.
Can't wait.
And there's going to be people coming up with testimony that's going to be against us, obviously. We're looking at, you can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time, but you can sure as heck do your best. And Greg has done a phenomenal job on that. And he tries to take care of every issue that comes up. But there's always going to be someone in a crowd that is going to have an issue. And like I said, Greg's done a great job on taking care of that. And from there, I don't really know what else to.
Well, let's see if we have any questions for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Doug, any questions?
No, ma'am.
How about you, Jim?
No question.
Jane?
None.
Don?
None.
And we don't count Patrick on this one.
We don't want
So
to.
I don't have any questions for you either, Mike, but I do wish you great, good fortune, and we look forward to the groundbreaking.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Just one other thing real quick is that, we want to get this, like Greg mentioned, we want to get this exception eliminated, but we'll worry about that once once we get rolling. And,
Yes.
when we have a soundproof building,
Yes.
we have, because everyone, even if you're on the first floor and it's open air, we're still going to have a hurricane-proof structure behind us. It's going to be facing Primo and Palermo, at where, our speakers are going to be facing Estero Boulevard. Like, let's say if we have a single or a duo playing, let's say on the first or third floor, during happy hour times, and that all faces Estero Boulevard. But, and it's like Margaritaville, for instance, their speakers are 360-degree speakers at their pools, which is really, I've walked by, I haven't been in it yet. It's a really nice sound. But when we if our music stops for a period of time, we can actually hear Margaritaville's music. I'm not complaining about that. They
Neither is anybody else.
Yeah, we-
Interestingly.
we actually love their music, and it doesn't bother us at all. But we want to keep our patrons, in our tent and not going over there. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Mike.
All right, have a good
Appreciate
day.
it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. I'm going to open the public comment. Is there anybody who would like to? Yes, ma'am. We can't miss you there.
Hello, friends. Hello, LPA. You guys have really big shoes and you're filling them very well. There's a lot of diversity that happens in leadership.
Can you tell us your name?
My name is Melody King.
Hi, Melody.
Hi there. I am actually a representative of the largest following on the internet for Fort Myers Beach. It has been a very dynamic thing to shift from search and rescue as a captain with the K9 Southwest Florida Rescue and Recovery Hard Saltwater Cadaver Dog Team and stand in front of you today still screaming, I love Fort Myers Beach. When I moved here 5 years ago, I moved here because I own a business called Paradise Parties. And guess what? Last year in February, TripAdvisor, in front of 30 million people, voted Fort Myers Beach the top tourist destination #5 in the United States of America. And guess what? It still is. And our local planning guy here was late because of traffic. Guess what? Stop complaining. Car karaoke is a real thing. All right, with that being said, we are on topic of the whale. Anybody that opposes a small business rebuild, considering a special exception permit, has absolutely got to understand where you live. If you do not understand where you live, perhaps it's not the right place to be. And I mean that with all due respect.
Melody, watch out now.
The whale.
And you're talking to us.
Correct. And the whale actually has a reputation of community orientation. And we don't want to miss out the point that Rick over here, Laurie said, a lot of us don't get off the water or get out of work until 7, 8 o'clock at night. And we struggle because we don't want to go to the lighthouse place. It's congested, and by all means, you can't really get a drink. We go to watch live music at the Whale, and believe it or not, they hire local entertainers and performers. So anybody that's on the LPA opposing any loud music orientation, and there's already an exception in place, you have to understand that it actually shifts the dynamic away from the pocketbooks of the small businesses and the musicians here, literally fighting for their lives without a building. And that is all I have to say. We really want Fort Myers Beach to be back as the top tourist destination, and we want to reshape the way people are looking at our island. The doom and gloom is over, and you guys have very large shoes to fill, and we thank you very much for all of your combined efforts.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Who else would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Rafael Gnurk. I
Morning,
live at
Rafael.
581 Palermo Circle. I apologize for the dirty outfit. I was just playing softball out there.
Did you fall?
No, I just rubbed the ball against it.
Okay.
I'm fine. Thank you, though. First and foremost, I want to say I've got nothing against the Whale. I've got nothing against small businesses. The owners of the Whale, they have very generously contributed to the rebuilding efforts of one of my neighbors, and I sincerely thank them for that. A year ago, you decided on the amendment of a special exception concerning live music at the Whale. During that hearing, the applicants promised to keep the noise levels of their music in the boundaries that the local noise ordinance demands. To me, sadly, I have to say they have not kept that promise. The music is very loud. Some evenings I cannot hear the TV on my porch because of it. Sometimes the bass of their setup makes my windows tremble and I cannot sleep. It is a severe detriment to me, my fiancée, and my property. One time, I went over there to complain, and the manager told me that, yes, it is way too loud, and that he had asked the musicians multiple times to turn it down, but that they refused to do so, and that he had made the business decision to let them keep playing and not shut them down. I have bought a calibrated sound level meter, I've got it here, to verify what's going on, and I have measured sound levels of 80 dBA at the property line of the closest residential property multiple times. The maximum allowed level would be 66 dBA. Please note that decibels work logarithmically, so that's not 22% too high, but it's more than twice as loud as what is allowed. So to me, they are either not willing or not capable of keeping the sound level at a decent level. And therefore, I ask you to recommend that the exception concerning the amendment of the exception concerning the amplified music will be rescinded. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Raphael. Appreciate your comments. Yes, sir. How are you?
My name is Bob Tabarini. I'm
Hi,
a local
Bob.
musician. I'm also I'm on the board of directors of 2 local Southwest Florida charities. I've also was the entertainment director of the Lonnie Kai. So I play Margaritaville. I play Pink Shell. I've got a very extensive experience in the subject we're talking about that can be verified. The thing about the sound levels, I was playing a show and it might have been entered into the record when I was watching this gentleman that just spoke come and take the sound meters. He took the sound readings not only at the property line, he came inside during one of my performances. I know what a sound meter looks like because I'm a professional. I know what this is. He walked inside the building, proceeded to take photos from inside the tent and snap photos of those readings. Those meters can also be manipulated by speaking when you're taking those measurements. And when he's talking about the bass rattling, I've got some details on that. When I play and perform there, I'm a solo acoustic performer. My voice cannot go lower than the frequency of my guitar. The lowest frequency that a guitar can generate is 82 hertz. That's not 82 decibels. Hertz is the pitch, high or low. Bass travels farther than high. So the higher the note is, it's like a ripple of a wave. A deeper wave, it's like if you throw a pebble in the water or throw a cinder block. A deeper, wider wave, so the wave of a bass can penetrate walls. It will travel farther. And I play the Margaritaville, so this is not an attack on Margaritaville, but when their DJ is pumping the bass, that bass travels farther. It is not inconceivable that he could be hearing the bass from Margaritaville because those waves travel. A bass wave goes down to 41 hertz. So the difference in the technical size of the wave and its ability to travel is really, when you hear a car go by and you hear that bump, 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 that's the bass you're hearing. A solo acoustic guitar player cannot generate that bumping bass. So that bumping bass is not coming from these shows. And so I want to say that, I, as someone who's very passionate about the recovery and how you've heard me speak before about this, I think such a big part of our culture on Fort Myers Beach, a draw, is the live music. We're not trying to do anything that's going to upset any neighbors. Every time I play there, I'm telling you, the managers are very vigilant about walking around. And there's also exceptions allowed for a bump in crowd response. If we finish a song and the crowd makes a bunch of noise, that is not amplified music. That is the crowd genuinely enjoying themselves. And could that exceed 80 decibels? It possibly could. I'm not there taking sound measurements, and certainly not during my performance. But I know that if you walk inside, and I watched the gentleman walk in, take his meter out and snap photos, inside from literally here to that thing inside the building right while I was playing. To
Okay,
me, that's
Bob,
borderline
thank you. Your
harassment.
time is up, but thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate your comments. And no, sir, unfortunately you can't. Would anyone else like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'ams. Whichever one wants to come up first.
Hi, it's wonderful to be here.
Good
I'm
morning.
Lotus Claire. I'm a musician. I perform at the Well on Monday evening, so I performed last night. The first thing I want to say is I am in love with Fort Myers Beach. Unfortunately, due to the hurricane, I'm not specifically a resident now, but I'm in love with Fort Myers Beach because I'm in love with the people. Part of the reason that I connected so well with Mike and Dawn is I saw that love for the people and the culture and all of those things that we treasure here on the island. When they bought the Well, they signed up to be a good neighbor because that's the nature of the beach. We love each other as people and neighbors, but they also agreed to impact the economic vitality of the island. And a part of that is live music. Music is what, makes us who we are as a tourist destination, which is a huge economic factor, if not the top one for the island. So I performed last night. I can say that Greg is very vigilant about checking the sound, monitoring that. He gave me the heads up before I performed there. I make sure my bass is turned down. I'm a solo artist. I make sure the bass is turned down. When I first play my music, I do a sound check. I wait for the thumbs up. Last night, I was asked to adjust it just a little bit. It was just a little bit too close for comfort. While I was performing, I have patrons, a lot of which are locals, guys. So one thing about the Well is it's a local spot. It's one of those mom and pop businesses that we treasure so much. And there's been such a huge fear of losing on the island. So a lot of locals, also tourists, a lot of the patrons were saying, can you please turn it up? Can you please turn it up? Obviously, I couldn't do that. But the sound is so minimal that when I was singing, I literally had to hold my mic this far from my mouth. I'm almost not singing into my mic at all. So I feel like it might be worth considering relieving this barrier on a small business when we have had such a fear. Obviously, things change. We all are afraid of change. Nobody wants change. We certainly didn't want the change that we were impacted with involuntarily. But in order to remain economically competitive and to provide our locals with this great experience as well as tourists, I hope that you'll support small businesses like the Well. That's part of the reason that I perform there, and that's the one place on the beach I perform. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Where's the other lady that would like? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Karen Slomsky. I actually wrote one of the letters, so can I
Hi,
still
Karen.
talk?
Yes.
Okay, so I live at 139 Palermo. So I'm the first house standing on our block. And I think there's a misconception that those of us who live on Palermo don't want the Whale to succeed. We do. I think it's more, sometimes the music is really, really loud. If the winter was warmer, I could not sit on my back lanai. Now, I'm not saying I don't want them to play music. There has to be some part, it is a residential street. They're a business on the end that they just have to think about the neighbors as well. And sometimes, I work with Greg. I go to the Whale. It's not that I don't go there. I do. And sometimes the music is fine. Sometimes it's way too loud. So I've been here since 2010. I understand that the locals, which I consider myself one, want to go to a place, but those locals who live on the block that want to go to bed, we need to be considered as well. And I get insulted when I hear that maybe I shouldn't live here. I'm here for the same reason that everybody else is here. We love the area. We rebuilt, we have no intention of leaving, but we need to work together as a community. And the Whale, for right now, I understand why they have the outdoor music. They do have, I would like to keep it where we can sleep at night and our windows aren't pounding. And can I ask them a question?
Go ahead.
When
Oh,
your
no,
daughter-
no.
No, I
oh,
can't answer.
No. Oh, that's Pandora's box.
No, I didn't
No,
know.
honey.
No, I didn't know. So my whole thing is once, like, I understand it's more of a short term right now, but once the building is built, I think we need to keep what's in place and keep the music inside, just so the rest of us who live on the block in a residential area can live and enjoy our own homes.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. I saw the look on your all's face was like panic. And who else would like to speak? Tom? Over here, are you all just the quiet zone? Nobody's going to talk on this side of this of the street today? That's all right. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Get out my notes here. My name is Tom Lump. I live at 145 Palermo Circle. I'm located approximately 200 feet from the Whale Restaurant. I've lived in that same house for 38 years, so I consider myself a local. I too, just to go get off of my speech here a little bit, I like music too. Everybody likes music. I don't like music that I don't choose. I don't like music that interrupts me in my house. I have no problem. I've come home from a couple of concerts in the last couple of months, dreading going back to my house and having to listen to drum beats and music that is just there, I can't get rid of. Okay, it's just one of those things. I like it, but when it bothers me, it's another story from somebody else's viewpoint. Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it here, all of you listening and trying to make these tough decisions. I want to set a stage for you just to kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. I think you can imagine a car pulling up to you when you're at a stop sign with subwoofers playing, volume turned up, rattling your car, wondering what's going on, and all of a sudden, the light changes and the car goes away, and it's no problem anymore. But we've all been in that position. I want you to imagine that car that pulled up next to you, sitting in front of your house every night for hours, and hearing that drum beat and hearing the music play that you didn't choose. You're home to relax, and that's the way I am. I work hard all day rebuilding my house, doing all kinds of things. And I come home to relax. I can't relax with the situation going on. So I ask you to really think about that car sitting in your driveway as I'm talking here. Okay, I'm sure the owners of the Whale are good people and they're trying to rebuild their business. We've supported the Whale for years and with no problems. I feel they did purchase a property with restrictions on it for a reason, with certain conditions. Those reasons applied back in the 90s, just like they do today. And that's exactly, we're facing the same thing again. For the past 30 years, we've had a great relationship with the restaurant and when the noise conditions were in place. However, history is repeating itself with the rescinding of the noise conditions at the Whale. The loud amplified music has forced me off of my outside deck. And it also, the volume and the reverberation can be heard and felt inside my house. My house is one of the older houses on the island. It was built in 1936. I do have insulation. I do have hurricane windows. I still can hear the sound and I can feel the reverberation in my house.
Tom, I have to ask you to wrap it up. Your 3 minutes has expired.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm 100% opposed to continuing the allowance of the music outside. I'm not opposed to any inside music, inside the walls of the building. Go crazy. I'll even come down. Don't do it to me when I don't need it at my house.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. I like your shirt.
Thanks. My name is David Veit. My wife Julie and I live at 220 Palermo Circle, and we are here to support Mike and Don in their efforts. We've been here for a long, long time. We enjoy the music. And contrary to some of the other homeowners, we live just a little further away from the whale and are not impacted at all. The only time I've ever really known it to be too loud was physically at the whale, and there was a band playing some really rock music, really loud. But that's literally the only time that it really affected us. Having talked to the owners and the manager and all the preparations they're going to do for the building, I'm encouraged that they're going to see it through. I know that it's still going to be another 6 weeks before they can break ground, but I just hope everybody can be patient enough to allow that 6 weeks to come along, and then the noise won't be an issue other than construction noise. So I'm here in support of continuing what you need to do.
Anybody else? Dawn?
Dawn Miller. I'm owner of the Whale and also live on the island. First, I want to say that I do not normally speak in front of everybody, so this is not going to go very well. I want to start by saying that during the week, we stop our music at 7 p.m. at a lower decibel than what our neighbors are allowed to play. We also stop at 9 p.m. on the weekends. I want to add that this group of people voted to allow Margaritaville to have extended music amplified at the full town levels until 10 p.m., not 6 or 8 weeks ago. I also want to add that we do not have any drums at the Whale and have not since we were here the last time. So the comment about the drums reverberating is not, it's not possible. That's not happening. Also, I want to add that one of the complaints that came in was one of the individuals here speaking today, and he came in at 4 p.m. and was upset that he could hear our trivia guy asking questions on his property. I think that that is a level above, yeah, I mean, being, for lack of a better term, ridiculous. You're going to hear your neighbors talk. Your neighbors have rights to play music in their property. You're going to hear that. I don't think it's fair to hold Whale to a different perspective other than like our neighbors. We are in a downtown district. Everything around us is also downtown. The house behind us on Primo and the house behind us on Palermo are downtown district. I also want to say that I think it was already mentioned, so but I will say that there was testing multiple times inside of our tent. You're not supposed to do that. It is on the receiving end of the residential side is where you would do your testing. And I know we are not going above that level.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no one else, raise their hand. Forgetting about you all. Nobody, oh, no, Greg. Okay, public hearing, public comment portion is closed. LPA members, any further questions for staff or for the applicant? Anyone? Dawn?
I just have one question. So there have been
For
no,
whom?
for the applicant.
Okay. Greg, do you want to come back up?
I just heard it from the last speaker from Ms. Miller, but there have been no drums since we passed the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. So it's maybe just the amplifier, because I drive by,
It
every
could
time
be
I
bass,
drive
but-
by, I roll down my windows just so I can, so I'm just curious. Okay.
So to provide a little clarification on that, it definitely could be bass, but I would say in about the last 3 months, almost all the musicians that we use now are repeat musicians. They all know they have to have the absolute bass at the lowest settings that they can have. They know our noise restrictions. Most of them have figured out exactly what their equipment, where they need to be to make sure that we're well within it. And in all honesty, if our decibels are hitting 72 on the property corners, it's really too loud in the tent. So we really aim for about 65 on the property corners at all times. Just because like Dave said, occasionally we've had a few different musicians that have come in and just treat it like a rock concert. And as one of the gentlemen that spoke, the incident that he mentioned, I actually cut that band off an hour and 15 minutes before they were supposed to stop playing. And it wasn't that they refused to turn it down. They kept turning it, at least acting like they were turning it down. It didn't really seem like it was getting anywhere. So we've never had them back since. I don't plan to. Like I said, again, unfortunately, I'm sure my friend Bob over there could probably testify to this. A lot of them come in and they kind of treated it like a rock concert. So it's obviously not that. So but we've been using a lot of the same musicians that are very aware of our situation, have gotten, I feel like, quite good at it. My staff and I, we really haven't, I think it's been probably a month since we've really hit anything over 72.
But no drums, specifically, that was the question, no drums.
Correct.
Okay.
No drums.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg.
Anita,
Any-
I have a question.
Yes,
I
go
just
ahead.
thought of.
Don, can you just pull back a little bit from the mic?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
You have a powerful voice, Doug.
You mentioned, what's your best estimate of when the building will be functional and you'll be able to have your music inside?
My best estimate is probably June of 2025, but that's probably a better question for Mike.
June of 2025, close enough.
June of 2025.
And when we break ground, we won't have anything functioning on that property. It'll just be construction noise, as somebody else mentioned.
So the 6 months extension,
Will expire, I mean, they won't use it.
Essentially, we would like the extension just to be until we break ground, essentially.
did you say June of 2025?
For our building to be operational, yes.
That's more than 6 months from now.
No, but there
They're
won't be
breaking
anything
ground.
there while they're constructing.
Oh, okay, understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg, appreciate it.
No problem.
Any further questions for staff? Anyone? If not, discussion? I have a question. Please don't say anything, but those of you who spoke complaining about the noise, would you raise your hand if you called town hall to log a complaint to code enforcement? Did you? Okay. Okay. Or the police? Okay. Any other discussion?
I would just like to piggyback on what Don says. Every time I drive by any location that has music, I feel it's important for me as an LPA person to lower my windows to see if it seems out of whack. And I will tell you that before we had the last meeting, I had told them that I felt that there were nights when it was loud. And I have not had that same situation happen again. So I do believe they are hearing what you're saying and trying their best. They don't have walls. They have plastic. So when the building is built, it will change everything. But they only have a few more weeks or months to continue to be a vital business on this island. And, for that sake, I would like to ask for your help in helping them be good neighbors and letting them know if there's an issue. But I would like to see them be able to continue. So I'm in favor of this.
Okay. Are you making a motion?
Oh.
Sounds like a motion.
Sounds like a motion.
It did.
Okay.
Without the actual
Turned
words.
into it.
Okay, I'm not sure my computer is still functioning. Yes, okay.
While Jane's fooling around with this, I'm glad I don't live next door to the whale. I love music and I love the fact that you guys are going to recreate an iconic business on the island that people will love and I will love too. But I sympathize with the neighborhood and with the gentleman that, Tom, who can't sit on his deck. I sympathize with that. I live on Jefferson Street in the middle of the island, and the symphony of chainsaws, hammers, and I speak Spanish. So lovely Spanish-speaking people yelling at each other on a daily basis is noise that I could do without. But it goes away and it doesn't last long and it's not as penetrating. And as soon as I close my doors or come in off my patio, I don't hear that. So I sympathize with the neighborhood who has an issue and the neighbors who have an issue. And I hate any case having to do with sound because, like I said, what's loud to me might not be loud to you. I would encourage folks who have noise complaints to log those complaints with the town, to log them with the town, to log them with the sheriff's department, if you're not getting satisfaction from the property owner. Because from what the property owner is showing us, they're staying in compliance. Anyhow, go ahead. Jim.
Anita, could I
Yep.
offer an amendment?
Sure.
um,
Two?
To the recommendation of the staff? I think I heard that they'll be breaking ground within 3 months,
Mhm.
even less. Could we amend this to allow a continuation for a period not to exceed 4 months? In
Instead of 6.
sympathy, instead of 6, in sympathy with, because I totally get it. It would drive me nuts too,
Yeah, it would drive me
but it
nuts.
is not forever. And maybe 4 months is acceptable to
Well,
the.
my only thought on that is, we all know how easy it is to get permits on Fort Myers Beach. So if he turns them in tomorrow, he should maybe get them by the end of the week, but that doesn't always happen. And my point is, I think that this is season, they need probably every penny they can make before that to keep moving forward.
Okay, Jane, you make
Okay.
your motion. You make your motion, then
All
we'll
right.
see if an amendment goes anywhere.
I would like to move to approve the 6-month review of the special exception, allowing for outdoor alcohol sales, live entertainment, and with the conditions for approval that were provided, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 conditions
F.
for approval, A through F.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second, Senate.
Would you all entertain Doug's 4-month as opposed to 6 months? Yes or no?
No.
No.
No. Okay. Sorry, Doug.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. And is there any discussion further on the motion? Hearing none. Jane, your vote?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Jim?
I'd like to state, I'm sympathetic to the neighbors. You're asking us to balance quality of life, which we recognize what you're saying, versus the support of a local business. It is only a 3 to 6 months inconvenience. I vote yes.
Doug?
Aye.
I'm Tom, and I'm sorry. And Raphael, I'm sorry. You're both, you're lovely people. I'm sorry. I'm also going to support the motion. What I'm really going to put great faith in, Greg, both Gregs, is that you guys, Mike and Greg, is that when somebody comes in and complains, that you really try to take care of them, okay? Because that's essential. Thank you all very much. The motion passes unanimously, and congratulations on your groundbreaking. Thank you. Okay, the next, do you all want to take a quick break? By the
be
way,
great.
Patrick recused from that vote. No break?
Yeah, quick break.
Yes. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I don't know, the left side of this room is The next item on our agenda is Resolution 2441 SEZ 202-30202, which is 1028 Fifth Street. It's a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving or approving with conditions or denying a special exception SEZ 202-30202, which is requesting consumption on premises to allow a bar cocktail lounge within 500 feet of a park for the property located at 1028 Fifth Street, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, Scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Jason, before we go any further, could I ask, and I know there are several, as a matter of fact, maybe can we do it all at once, Nancy? If there's anybody in here who's going to testify as an expert in this case, a consultant, a planner, and anybody, could you please stand and let's qualify you, or do we not have any experts on this case? We don't? Very good. We'll go on. Okay.
Good morning again. Jason Smalley, Senior Planner with the town. As was mentioned during the introduction, this is a request to approve a use of a bar and cocktail lounge, which is a accessory use to the existing restaurant. This is Mr. Wave's Island Bar, and the requirement for requesting this is they are looking to be classified as that accessory use for bar and cocktail use. This was explained in their narrative as a hedge against any months in which they might fall below the requirement to keep 51% of their receipts as food sales. The request itself is for an existing business. They had recently opened after the storm. But they continue to be a restaurant, and their narrative says that they will continue to be a restaurant. So this is, again, a hedge against a hypothetical is how they're presenting it. The requirement is necessary because of their proximity to two of the town's parks. And so I don't mess this up. Whoa. The distance to the park, to the closest park, is roughly 240 feet. It was determined during their initial zoning review that their seating and their service was all within the building. They do have a patio area under their roof, so they do have windows open up to the street. But it was determined that that use was considered to be within the building during their normal zoning verification to get approval to open as a restaurant. Staff is open to any questions that you may have, and the applicants representative is here.
Thank you, Jason. Jason, can I just ask, Jane, were you going to say something?
Go ahead now.
Could I just ask you, so the restaurant as it exists as a restaurant has the ability to sell beer and alcohol as it exists. This is for the hypothetical or the potential that they decide to not do food and just let it become a bar?
Yes. So theoretically, if they decided to just become a bar, this would allow them to do that. What the difference between how they're functioning today and how they might function in the future really hinges on whether or not their receipts go over that 51% food sales. That's a requirement set by the state and has been adopted in language in our land development code.
Okay, well, Jane, before you say something, could I just ask if anybody has any ex parte? Do you have any, Jane?
No.
Patrick?
I spoke with the ownership few months ago when they were first looking at regulatory issues, but it wasn't associated with this case.
How about you, Don?
None.
Jim?
None.
Doug?
None.
I don't have any either. Jane?
She asked my question, so I don't have a question. Open it back.
Okay. Any other questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. We'll call you back up if we need to. And the applicant? Are you testifying as a?
I don't have my credentials on file with you also. I'm not sure what the requirement would
That's
be.
why we need to, would you tell us your credentials, please?
Yeah, my name is Keith Long.
Hi,
For the
Keith.
record, I am an attorney with Long Law here on behalf of the applicant in this case, which is Waves Island Bar Limited Partnership. So first of all, thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
Wait, hold on.
Oh.
We have a little process here.
Yeah.
What is your field of expertise?
I am an alcoholic beverage law attorney and land use attorney as it pertains to alcoholic beverages.
Excellent. May I have a motion, please, to accept the gentleman as an expert in his field?
So moved, Seth.
Second.
Okay.
Plummer.
Is there any objection to the motion? You are officially an expert.
Look
for
at
us
that.
now.
That was easier than law school.
Well,
Yeah.
I did think it was kind of cute the way you started that with, I am an alcoholic, and I was like, is he doing
Alcohol
Yeah, we're-
and,
Yeah, yeah.
alcohol
The
and.
first step is admittance.
Okay,
That's right.
No,
Thank you for being here.
again, my name is Keith Long for the record here on behalf of the applicant. Just to provide further context and clarification, I guess, because it is sort of a nuanced request, as I'm sure you've noticed. The way that it works and the precipice for how we got here is the restaurant is currently existing as a restaurant, has been for several months now. And my understanding in large part in harmony with the community and they've been widely received. What happens in this industry sometimes, and particularly in areas such as this, where it's more of a tourism-driven industry, is that the restaurant component, which is the required by the state alcoholic beverage law, to maintain at all times 51% or more of revenue from non-alcoholic beverages and food. At any point in time can skew one way or the other by a few points in that nature. And so as a beverage law attorney, I can also say that the state governing body for the liquor licenses takes a strict adherence to that requirement. They audit you on a regular basis. And I believe, which is unique, admittedly, I work all over the state, that you all's codes also provide you the opportunity to audit these individuals to maintain that 51% compliance. And so what happens is you've got a business that subject basically to the consumption rates of the public in general, which fluctuates depending on the month for spring break, for example, et cetera. And so what this is we are, in order to alleviate the need to maintain that 51%, you are required by law to place into the location what's called a 4COP quota alcoholic beverage license, which comes at a significant cost, upwards of $500,000. And so what this is requesting you all's approval to allow us to place that into the location so that we are not, the applicant is not jeopardizing the significant amount of money that they've put into the location by a few percentage points, give or take, depending on when the beverage law decides that they want to be audited. It's administrative in nature. It's sort of a benign use is the way that I'm presenting it. The restaurant will continue outwardly to the public in the same manner that it has operated. They will maintain, the menu does not change. Like someone else had indicated, they currently do sell beer, wine, and liquor for consumption on premise. And so outwardly, nothing changes. Inwardly, this allows us to place this license into the location. And so the last little bit of clarification is that the bar / cocktail lounge classification that you all are here to approve is required in the code for us to place that license there, because it is essentially a bar cocktail license by removing legally the requirements of the 51% or more food service. That's not the intent of the applicant to go full bar or nightclub or any of that. They maintain that they will continue their obligations to you here to operate as a restaurant.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have questions for the gentleman? Doug?
No, ma'am.
How about you, Jim?
The applicant has no intention of not serving food if it drops below the 51%.
No, sir. No, the operations will continue as they have since the beginning of the opening of the restaurant.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jane, do you have any questions?
I don't.
How about you, Doug? Don?
Just one, if, so the applicant wouldn't have a problem with a condition stating such, what they're offering is that they would continue, they'll always continue to I mean, you
offer
said a
food?
few percentage points.
Sure.
Like
So what?
they're
So
concerned they might run down to, that their alcohol ends up being, higher than their food, right? Their consumption. is what
correct.
the
Yeah,
issue
that's the
is.
nature of the request.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the applicant wouldn't have a problem with a condition that said you can't exceed 55%, alcohol or.
Would depend on that. I mean, I think with respect to you and the staff, I'm not. We could, but I can also tell you that that portion of the code that I referred to you all to, as far as the town's ability to audit, it's my understanding that the town has never enacted that. It's quite a
I
significant
can't do that.
undertaking, and I'm not sure that we would want to obligate them to that. I can tell you that I'd be happy to put that something similar on the record. I think what I see more often in these cases, because I do this quite a bit, is that I don't imagine that they would have any issues. And I have to confirm with them if that was something that the board collectively wanted to offer food at all times that they are open. That's something that I see a lot as a condition, just to kind of as a good faith acknowledgement that isn't an obligation on staff or the town's resources to, tie them to, routine audits, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Patrick, any questions?
None.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, so now left side, it might be your turn to stand up. This is, we're opening the public hearing or the public comment portion of this. Would anyone like to speak? Thank goodness. Okay, come on. The first
One
red
live
shirt up.
one.
Are you sworn in?
Were you sworn in earlier? Yes, you were. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel Clarkston. I'm one of the general partners from Waves Island Bar Limited Partnership. We've been open for around about 4 months and 2 weeks right now. We've been through 3 months of very cold days and everything. I'm glad that changed. I just want to make sure that we have no intention with this request to completely transition into a nightclub or a bar. Pretty much half of our inside square footage area is our kitchen. We were always intended to offer food. We just started breakfast about 2 months ago, which is super popular. We're opening pretty much in the morning at 9 a.m. And all the workers on the island and the residents as well. We have a lot of regulars already that come for our breakfast and our Bloody Marys as well. So, which, we're just pretty well received by everyone. It is like Keith Long said, pretty much just a precaution for us not to run into any legal issues to then not be allowed to serve hard liquor anymore.
May I ask you, would you agree to a provision that said you must have food available for your hours of operation?
Absolutely, I would agree to that.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
no problem.
Thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you.
Who else would like to speak? Anyone else?
God, you have to pull it out of them.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Bomarito.
Hello, Mike.
With Mr. Waves. I have a question. When you are going to stipulate that the kitchen is open during the hours of operation?
Not what I said.
Okay, that I just wanted to clarify it because the kitchen typically closes about 9, whereas we stay open a little bit later than that. And that may also be skewing the numbers a little bit. So I just want to make a comment.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any comments? Are you waving your hair with the cool hair? Come on.
Line him up.
I do love the hairdo. It's
Thank
very
you.
cool.
My name is Pam Shank, and I am the kitchen person at Mr. Waves, and I just want to say that the owners, and I'm not going to look at them, the owners and all of the employees there, they are great people. They have given a lot of jobs to some workers. They have brought in a lot of jobs, and I honestly believe if you allow us to continue to do what we're doing, that it will bring even more in with us being right there facing the bridge. And we're the first ones that they actually see when they come over the bridge. So I just think it's very important. I work a lot of hours now, but I will be willing to try to stretch a little bit more hours if we can keep this license for them.
Thank you so
That's all.
much.
I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I'm glad you got up to say something. Thank you. Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Chris Trumbull. I'm the AM bartender there. I've been there since the beginning. And like Daniel said, it's been a slow start for us due to the weather and the cold. And, I've opened up Snug Harbor years ago when they first opened. And I know how it is to open a business on the island. I've seen it to get your feet in the sand, and start to grow. It takes time, effort, and trial and error. Now that we've served breakfast, we have people lined up out the door. As soon as I open those gates, people are coming in. And so the food sales is definitely going up. And a lot of people that walk in, they state that, oh, you're a restaurant, you're a bar. because they think we're that souvenir shop that used to be there. So now that, the names getting out there and they're learning and they're starting to see, oh, and they come in too with their families. Like we have no intention of becoming like a bar or a nightclub or the night spot. Because I also bartend at Leaky Tiki and I know that had its issues at times. So I know like we are becoming like a family orientated restaurant establishment, and people are coming in. They're talking really highly about us. They love coming, and we would just like to have the chance to prove to you guys that we belong and fit into this community, and we'll just keep pushing the bar higher as it comes at us.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks for being here. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close this down. I see him. Did somebody
Do you
say
have
something?
any
over here?
closing comments?
Yes, I was going to ask him that. He's walking back.
One quick point of clarification, since Margaritaville continues to be a point of reference at these meetings, I understand, is that they currently operate the license that we're requesting your approval to utilize in our location. And of course, they're right across the street. I just thought that was worth noting to the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for the gentleman? No? Any further questions for staff? No. Any discussion on this issue? No. Anybody have a motion?
I'd make a motion to accept the staff recommendation to grant the exception with the condition that's in the staff's recommendation.
Doug, how about, and that food be available, which could mean some Lance crackers, some
And-
food be available during hours of operation.
And that food be available during hours of operation.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. That way you don't have to be in there actually whipping up eggs. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Doug, your vote?
Aye.
I vote aye. How about you, Jim?
Aye.
How about you, Jane?
Aye.
And Don?
Aye.
And Patrick?
Aye.
Congratulations, guys. You know, my store local color was right in back of you, and I wish it was still there because the color of my building would match your hair. Anyhow, congratulations and welcome to Fort Myers Beach. Yeah. Okay, next item on the, that just made me sad. All right. Next, what happened to my
Our
agenda?
audience is leaving.
Hold on one second. I got jumbled up here as usual. Where's the second page? I do. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 2440 SEZ 202-30293, which is 923 3rd Street. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, or denying a special exception, SEZ 202-30293, which is requesting a special exception from LDC 34-3238-2E4A, which requires an increase to the number of residential bedrooms which may be developed while utilizing the post-disaster build-back ordinance for the property located at 923 3rd Street, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, Scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Doug, do you have any ex parte on this?
No, ma'am.
How about you, Jim?
No.
Jane?
No.
Don?
No.
Patrick?
None.
I don't have any either, although I do know the owner of this property. Okay, Jason.
Good afternoon, Jason Smalley, Senior Planner with the town. As was mentioned, this is a request for a special exception on 923 3rd Street. This is a special exception that was recently added to the code through the approval of a ordinance by town council that dictates the policy that says that if somebody utilizing the post-disaster build back, whereas previously you would have been limited in the number of rooms that you could redevelop, the town council has offered a pathway to request additional bedrooms, and that's what the applicant is requesting today. As I mentioned before, recently the applicant has come in for a variance on their property. That variance was approved. There was an administrative variance that was existing from 2007 that continues to be in effect. What they've requested today is the allowance to increase the total number of bedrooms to 6 bedrooms Under Lee Property Appraisers information, which is the best available information that staff has right now, they are listed as having 3 bedrooms. Staff has done a brief analysis of the surrounding area, and we've come to the conclusion that there is approximately an average of 3 bedrooms in the remaining structures. I would caution that this was post-storm, so I did not have the capability to go back and see all of the information and all of the structures in that area that existed pre-storm. These are just structures that existed today. So that may skew that number just a bit, but you've seen the analysis in the staff report. The applicant is going to be required to develop a normal number of parking spaces that was discussed during their variance approval. And as one of the conditions of approval, staff is recommending that if this were to be approved, that the town council consider adding a requirement to, pardon me, to develop buffers to help sort of mitigate any possible increase in noise or nuisance from the increase into 6 bedrooms. Staff is available for any questions that you may have on this, and then the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Jason. Jim, questions?
The applicant's position is that there were 4 existing bedrooms prior to Ian, correct?
I believe so, yes. Staff cannot establish that through the record, though.
Doug, do you have any questions for staff?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Jane?
My thing is dead, so I can't really look at my pictures, but the footprint of this property, is that going to be expanded, and is that why they need the variances for the setbacks?
So the the variances were requested for an additional level that was being added. They were going to bump out to the minimum required setback of 7.5 feet. The variance also implicated the development of a new deck, and then the raising of an existing deck. And then the deck that was existing and now being raised would then protrude into the minimum 25-foot setback. And that necessitated having a variance along with the addition of approximately 100 square feet of additional roof space up and above the 40% max that's generally applied to
So the
single-family
3rd
lots.
floor is what is extending out past the ground setback.
They would have 2 decks, sorry. They would have 2 decks. One deck at the first level would be allowed under current code to protrude an additional 10 feet. The existing deck that was being raised up would also sit in that 10-foot protrusion area. And so that necessitated having a variance, because you can only have that additional protrusion as long as it serves the first level of the home, not any additional levels above it.
I never heard that before.
I had some questions, but I think you may have answered those. I think I recall that variance coming before us. They had 3D renderings of the home with pretty significant decks up front. So my question was, and I think you may have answered that, I wasn't sure if we were looking at the provisions that apply to rebuilding with greater than 50% damage versus under the 50%. And I believe it's greater than 50% if they're rebuilding the whole thing. And the other thing that I wasn't quite clear in the application was if it had been lifted at this point or not. And I think nothing's occurred. Is that correct?
That is correct. As far as I know, he has not applied or received building permits for lifting or any of the other development.
So other than the variances obtained, these provisions would require that he meet current regulations unless he's already obtained a variance. Correct?
The only thing that would not meet the normal building development standards are those variances that were
What's being
approved.
presented today.
And then the request to expand the number of rooms to 6.
Perfect.
Jane?
the ground level living space, that is not going to be lifted or used. Is that correct?
So as part of the revision to the post-disaster build back policy, it was determined by town council that any of the non-habitable but under roof area that existed, so in this case, a ground level apartment or even a carport, for instance, could now be utilized for habitable space. So that area is being transferred up to one of the other two levels that he is
Okay.
developing. But as far as I know, that ground floor area is going to be meeting all of the minimum flood codes, which limits use down there to storage, parking, and access.
Okay.
Patrick? Is this a perfect case for a development agreement with deviation?
It would simplify because you could come in
Good
with
Lord.
one diagram and show it on the diagram and explain everything because it all works in concert with each other. You know, obviously the variances were needed to make it happen. And now,
It's
taking
coming
that
back.
extra square footage and putting
Exactly.
upstairs allows them to create more room. So perfect example of site plan with deviation would simplify the process.
It would have been nice to look at the whole project
Yeah.
instead of piece and piece. Excuse me. Any other questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Chris, are you going to present?
Where's your lifesaver?
I didn't bring lifesavers this time, Jane.
I know, we're all expecting them.
Good
Sorry.
morning. My name is Christopher Mostero. I'm the homeowner at 923 3rd Street. I didn't have the opportunity to stand before you all at my last variance hearing. I was out of town, so I do like to. I was over the phone. My engineer was here, so it is nice to be able to see some faces today. Just to reiterate what Jason said, my previous variances were for my front deck of my home. It's currently on the I guess second floor of the house. That is going to be pushed up to a third floor of the house, and the town code doesn't allow a deck on the third floor of the house. Today, we're looking at increasing the number of bedrooms that is allowed. The town council has approved in the post-disaster build back policy. So since my home is a duplex, I live in one half and my intention is to rent the other half. I can't increase, I could, I guess, keep the same square footage under my roof line. However, I cannot increase the number of bedrooms unless I come here and ask for a special exception. So that's really what I'm here today doing. My first floor of my home previously had 1 bedroom, 2 beds in it. Along half of the home, the other half was a carport. So under the policy, I'm allowed to expand my square footage utilizing that carport space. But again, I have to come here and ask for more bedrooms. LPA is old data. LPA has my home at a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. That was incorrect. It does have my home as a duplex. It had that piece right, but there were more bedrooms than that. Looking at all the other homes in my neighborhood, LPA's not right. I'm sure we experience that all the time, but the LPA average of homes, like Jason said, is 3.2 bedrooms. The actual average is more like 4.3 bedrooms of what people actually have in my neighborhood. There's 19 homes in my neighborhood. My neighborhood I call is Matanzas View. It's a unique, very unique area on the island. It's straddled between Old San Carlos and Mas Marina. It's 3rd Street, Harbor Court, and Bonita Street. There are 19 current structures on our home, or 19 current structures and homes still post-storm now. 9 of them are duplexes.
Chris, just push that over. Here comes Jacob. Wow, that is something else.
So there are 19 structures remaining post-storm in our neighborhood. 9 of them are duplexes. It's a transient neighborhood. 5 of those homes, or 5 of those buildings are full-time rentals. There's no one ever there besides renters. part-time residents, snowbirds consist about 4 of those buildings. When they're not here, they're rentals. And the full-time residents that exist, all 5 of us, they're all duplexes and they're all rentals. So this is not an intrusion on our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is energized by the downtown district. It's a weekly rental neighborhood. It's a transient rental neighborhood. Coming before you all in the next couple months will be the development of Mas Marina as well. That the back of my property is a shared property line with Mas Marina. If 1 more bedrooms approved on that property, it's more than they had pre-storm. So again, that's all I'm asking. Town council did have this plan in place to allow people to ask for more bedrooms. So that's what I'm here today. I do support, just to put in some other sense, if there is any sort of way to expedite this process or to make this process easier for homeowners, I would encourage you all to empower you all to do that. I applied for my first variance in July. I'm hoping to break ground and start my project here in April. It's been a long process. Town staff has been more than willing to meet with me and answer all my questions and has been super supportive the entire way, but it's been a long, difficult, and expensive process to get here before we haven't even started construction yet. Thank you.
Confirm that you're asking for more bedrooms, but you are not asking for more units. Is that correct?
Correct. The house will remain a duplex. Square footage is the increased square footage is allowed. I'm asking for more bedrooms.
Patrick, that is such an interesting point because I don't think people get that. I don't know why I've lost my ability to speak, which could be a good thing. Don, any questions?
No questions.
Jane?
I have one for staff.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Jim?
You have received a copy of the staff report,
Yes.
and the conditions, if it's approved, are acceptable?
I don't think we'll have any issues meeting parking conditions. Again, the ground floor of the home is going to be stilts and only parking. I don't understand what the landscaping requirements are. Is their bedrooms? I'm not sure how landscaping is going to create a buffer for bedrooms that are 15 feet up in the air, but I'm happy to explore that and do anything that's needed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Doug, any questions for Chris?
What's hard for me is to really understand what we're talking about. I mean, if we're talking about more bedrooms, I get that, but I don't have a picture of what the existing structure was and what it's going to look like in the future.
So, Chris, do you want to explain that to him?
So seems hard to squeeze more
I have a
bedrooms.
rendering if you would like to see it. It was a part of my variance package because that was kind of a bigger ask. This post-disaster build back policy got modified after my variances, so that's why I'm here again. But I do have pictures. Basically, we called it the sandwich house at the first LPA hearing. So there's an existing floor up on stilts that is going to get lifted up to a 3rd floor. I'm going to build the new 2nd floor and beneath it. That's where I need my more bedrooms. And then parking is just going to, ground floor is going to be parking. So previous to storm was just the house on stilts and an enclosed parking beneath.
You're more or less doubling the square footage.
Of the carport. They're possible because of the carport.
Because of the
Because
carport and,
Yep.
and
All
half
carport.
lower level beneath, yeah.
Any other questions for Chris? Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Jane, you had a question for Jason?
He said that the balcony is not permitted on a 3rd floor. They're everywhere. How is that not right?
Well, let me clarify, because this is kind of a unique scenario that we haven't run into. So the previous deck that he had would be allowed to utilize that additional 10 feet.
Okay,
Because it
I get
serves
it
the
now.
first.
Okay, never mind.
So now the
I get
higher
it.
level.
I get it. Okay.
Thank you,
Understood.
Jason. Okay, public comment. Would anybody here like to make public comment on this case? Seeing none, the public comment is closed. Is there any discussion from the LPA on this case? If not, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve with staff recommendations for,
With,
yeah, exceptions.
okay.
And is there a second for that
I'll
motion?
second.
So there's motion made by Don and seconded by Jane to approve with the staff recommendations. Any further discussion? Don, your vote?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Chris. Good luck. I think his was more topsy-turvy than my fence. Okay. Next item on the agenda, the final item on our agenda, the final hearing is ordinance 24. Why is it -XX? And why did I just realize this? But anyway, DCI rezoning 202-30194. This is 3051 Estero Boulevard. This is the 7-Eleven. An ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, or denying the commercial plan development, CPD, zoning for the property located at 3051 Estero Boulevard, generally identified as strap numbers 29-46-24-W1-0120C.0100, Fort Myers Beach. It's providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, Scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Do you want to know something funny? I got an email asking what the heck a Scrivener error is. Why do you always talk about Scrivener error? Okay, may I ask if there's any LPA member that has, Patrick has already said he's recused from this. Anybody have any ex parte communications? Don?
No.
No.
Jane? Jim?
No.
Doug?
No.
I don't either. Okay, Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Probst. I am not looking forward to going through all the deviations because I'm sure that at some point this is going to start making a lot of noise. So my apologies. Sarah Probst with Community Development. The neighborhood company, on behalf of the Southland Corporation, the property owner for 3051 Estero Boulevard, has applied for a commercial plan development rezoning to redevelop the property on the corner of Voorhees Street and Estero Boulevard with a convenience store. The commercial boulevard zoned property was the site of a 7-Eleven store and gym prior to Hurricane Ian. A convenience store was previously on site, but the commercial boulevard zoning district does not allow the convenience store or gas pump use. In order to rebuild the convenience store with gas pumps, a commercial plan development is necessary. The requested CPD also includes several deviation requests from the Land Development Code for site design. They're requesting a deviation from the vehicle access separation from section 10-285. The code requires a minimum separation distance on Estero of 250 feet. However, the access point on Estero is going to be 97.7 feet from the Voorhees Street center line. On local streets, the code requires 125 feet of separation. The proposed site would provide 73 feet from the from the Estero intersection. Nope. That's the wrong measurement. My apologies. So it's in your staff report, the correct distance. A deviation is being requested from section 10-416 to decrease the minimum type C buffer width requirement of 15 feet for a type C buffer. So the deviation would allow a minimum width of 3 feet for the portion of the property that directly abuts the dumpster on the northeastern boundary. They're requesting a deviation from LDC section 34704A, which requires build to lines for Estero Boulevard to be established 5 to 10 feet from the front property line. A deviation would allow for a build to line of 5 to 90 feet instead. The proposed building would be located 89.9 feet from Estero Boulevard with the fuel pumps forward of that. They're requesting a deviation from section 34706D to allow access from Estero Boulevard and Voorhees Street. The code requires that if a site has access to a secondary street and Estero, that the access must be from the secondary street. They're requesting a deviation from 34704B1A, which requires a minimum street setback for streets other than Estero Boulevard to be 10 feet. The deviation would allow a minimum of 0-foot setback from Voorhees Street. A deviation from LDC 341744B4D, which requires screening a refuse container to not exceed 6 feet in height. The deviation would allow the refuse container screening enclosure to be a maximum of 6 feet 6 inches. No, 7 feet 6 inches in height. The request matches up with what the town council had requested for the other 7-Eleven at 1301 Estero. The proposed development request should be evaluated according to section 3485B and C and 34216 of the LDC. These findings and conclusions are listed in the staff report. Deviations must be approved or modified or rejected per the findings in section 34216-4. These findings can be found in the staff report also. Several conditions are listed in the staff report, including a requirement to replace any landscaping damaged during construction, as the proposed wall appears to be very close to the hedges that are existing on the neighboring property. Staff is available for any questions, and the applicant is also here.
Okay. Questions for Sarah. Doug, do you have any?
No, I don't.
Okay. How about you, Jim?
No, I don't.
Jane?
Not at this time.
Don?
Just want to double check the ingress egress for the, I'm looking at like off of Voorhees, back where it says optional electric vehicle charging. Looks like there's parking and there's a 24-foot. That's standard, the 24-foot passage? Or is
The
that-
width, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then are the EVs, are they part of this plan? Are the EV charging
That may be in the current plan, but they did want to show it in case they wanted to do that in the future. We did discuss whether that could be used for parking, for their parking numbers. And we discussed signage that they could put up that would ensure that it was still available for parking or for EV use when that was installed.
Okay, so there would be room for parking back in that area?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I had the same question about Voorhees. Okay. Jane, did you have any questions?
The 0 lot line off of Voorhees, it is, that is part of what we were trying to get businesses to come forward and have everything else in the back, but they can't meet that because of their pumps and things like that would be costly to have to move to a different location. So having it at 0 lot line on Voorhees, how do you think that will affect any incoming vehicles from that street?
I don't know that it would affect any vehicles. It's a standard easement, so there is a decent amount of depth between the actual roadway and that property line. So they're not going to feel like they're right on the road at this point.
So what was their setback prior?
It was a bit more than that. The difference now is that they shifted away from that side lot line that's adjacent to the apartment complex. So now there's room to drive around on that side.
And is there going to be other businesses in this building, or is it just going to be 7-Eleven?
It appears that it's just proposed to be 7-Eleven at this time.
Okay. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Sarah. Now we'll have the applicant. Hi, Fred. Nice to see you.
Ken.
Oh, Ken. I always confuse.
Fred. That's a new one.
No, I confuse.
I
the
can't
two.
wait to use that at the whale.
Yeah. Hi, Ken.
It's nice to see you.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Ken Galliner. I've been sworn in and I've been recognized as an expert before you
Regardless of what I call you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can call me whatever, but
Thank
just
you.
not late for dinner, right? We're here with our second of 3 7-Eleven petitions for the rezoning. And I do have a short presentation just to start off, full agreement with what Sarah presented in the staff report and conditions. But I'd be happy to go through this. It's only about 50 slides so we should be able to be done here pretty, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so,
The humor of planners. It's
yes,
like, oh.
isn't it? So, so again, our project team, we have everybody here, the property owner, Southland, which is the 7-Eleven group, the neighborhood company, which is the land use and planning component of it, J.R. Evans, the engineering, and Creighton for the construction and development. So all of our experts here are available to answer questions. The presentation overview, do a little background of the request, discussion analysis, and findings and conclusion. Sarah described the project's location, future land use category. It is a relatively larger parcel, obviously because of the existing conditions to support the prior convenience store and gym. And this again has a fueling pumps. Existing uses, surrounding uses, we have Estero Boulevard, Voorhees right-of-ways, a mixture of residential structures, both vacant and occupied, vacant fire station, commercial land, and some surrounding parking lots. This is representation of the property and the existing structure prior to Ian. You can see we have the access point off of Estero here, pretty wide on Voorhees here, and another on the portion of the northern, or that portion of the property. In this little button.
Great when it works.
Oh, there we go. Again, our request, the prior existing development was approximately 6,200 square feet. We're looking at about a 5,000 square feet store. The maximum FAR is a 1.0, which would allow for over 30,000 square feet. So we're well below that. As pointed out, we have one access point off of Estero and maintaining the 2 access points off of Voorhees. Obviously, the intent is to improve on what was previously existed there, bring that back. And also through this process, we want to reduce or eliminate any nonconformities that may be out there and comply with any FEMA standards that would be applicable here. And going through the CPD process provides us that flexibility to work with staff, work with the town, to come up with a property for this relatively unique shaped property. Location, we are in the quiet center of Estero Island. We won't be having any drums or bass playing at this use, but you just never know. But we're going to bring back highly utilized and key commercial use with fuel options. We're maintaining this ideal location of providing for goods and services to the residents and visitors. We still feel it's complementary and compatible with the surrounding uses, utilizing our appropriate setbacks, buffering, open space, site design ensures that compatibility as well. And we are not aware of any negative impacts that the convenience store use had prior to the storm. You know, it's a little small on the screen, but this is the master concept plan that we've developed. As was discussed previously, the building is relocated farther towards Voorhees Street with that 0 setback. This does allow for improved maneuverability, especially for the fueling trucks and service trucks, and to get through to the property, plus also moves the use farther away from those residential properties to the northwest and northeast. Also, yes, there are proposed opportunities for the electric stations for vehicles. So just to provide for that overall opportunity for any type of fueling and recharging of vehicles. And up front are obviously the fueling station, fueling pumps. We're consistent with the LDC and comprehensive plan is enabling us to redevelop the property. We're consistent with the comp plan goals. We're working to provide for that pedestrian connectivity through connecting of the sidewalks, both interior and to the rights of way. Design standards, wanting to build it back a attractive and aesthetically pleasing new development. This is the elevations of the 7-Eleven proposed. This is the substantial dumpster and solid waste enclosures, including recycling. And again, we're seeking that deviation consistent with how the town council felt for others, just to ensure that this achieves more of that compatibility. The location of the dumpster enclosure is exact same place as the prior dumpster existed. The renderings of the proposed development.
Looks great.
Thank you. Oh, now.
I hope that gas price isn't $8.
We
Those are
could change.
probably meant to be zeros, but I would pick another number.
Yeah. And then again, consistent with the land development code, again, intent of reducing, eliminate the nonconformities. Obviously, urban services exist and support the prior convenience store, and we're not intending to negatively impact traffic. Being a redevelopment of an existing impacted site, no environmental impacts, and just reestablishing a resilient store with fueling options is appropriate in this central area of the town. With
And
the
before
yes,
you go
ma'am.
on, could you back up to the other screen? I've got a question for you.
This one?
Nope, the image. One before.
Yep, I pressed the button. It's
Okay, we'll
it's
wait.
thinking.
Well, while it's thinking, my question, so this is in my neighborhood. I call this my 7-Eleven.
Uh-huh.
How you've got this, where the sign is with the gas price, that's Voorhees, right? And you've actually got that curbed. That has always been, the pavement always degrades there. It's always just been a mess. So do you actually plan to do this where you're going to improve and sort of isolate that corner so that nobody's going to, like me, just make a diagonal turn to the gas pump? Do you follow what I'm saying? I'd have to turn on Voorhees or come up, whatever. So that island will kind of be there. You
Yeah,
understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and I'll confirm with the engineers as they've helped design this.
Great.
So
It would just be a nice improvement to that corner because that corner, you know how that corner always is? It's
Yeah.
just awful.
You don't know where
Yeah.
the cars are going to go to get in.
Exactly.
So, and to
'Cause they're
ensure
gonna
that
go
there's
wherever.
curbing that helps ensure the cars
Yeah, just so
stay.
it creates the place because historically it's been a pool of mess. It just, and people just, it's all been open, so people just go and come as they
So
will.
we're
Okay,
looking
sorry
maybe
to
at
bring that
this.
up now, but,
No, that's all right. We're looking at potentially this
that's
spot
that
here.
corner.
Yeah, so that will be, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, it'll be curbed and it'll be a landscaped area that would restrict cars from over
Yes.
on top of that, plus the sign.
Right, Brandon Fry for the record. The existing access is a little closer to a stair, which I think facilitates that diagonal entry
Mhm.
into the 7-Eleven. We're pushed back just a few feet and we will have curb to, as Ken had mentioned, protect the sign, protect the sign and help to prevent
Did you
those
call him
diagonal.
Fred? Good. Forever.
and to prevent those diagonal entries.
Okay, perfect. It'll be a big improvement for the street.
I have a question. Because of
Yes,
all
ma'am.
the parking on the back side of it, I'm saying the back as to the trash can side of it.
Okay.
There is a door there. Is that going to be an accessible door or just an emergency door to access the property?
Nobody ever parks there to go into 7-Eleven.
I know, but they're going to have this whole
Yeah.
new place.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah.
Yep, here you go.
Everybody join in.
Mark Aaron, I'm with 7-Eleven. I've been with 7-Eleven for 24 years.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. This is a diagram of what we call our new prototype store, and that typically is a door that is open for customers to come in this prototype.
That's
It's
great.
different from what we've had in the past. So you would enter there, and the sales counter would be at your left, restroom, food when you come in the back.
I just think that'll eliminate a lot of the craziness around the pumps of backing out and all that if they go to the back.
Jim,
That's
did you want
great.
to ask something?
Well, while we're talking about the east elevation, and you did such a nice job with a mural on the last one, blank walls offer an opportunity. I don't know if you've ever used Fandrel or graphic or another mural, but it seems like there's an opportunity there to do something more than just a blank wall.
Yeah, but just to clarify, I pulled up our elevations here. So this would be, I'm trying to get, there. Can you see the little dot? Oh. This is the elevation facing Voorhees. There are windows, and so there's going to be an element of more architectural parts of the building rather than utilizing.
Talking about the east elevation,
The back,
the back.
Oh,
the top picture.
yeah.
It was
So-
the top picture,
Top sketch of that. There you
right
go.
there.
Right there. Top.
Right.
okay.
Right. Very good, Vanna.
Thanks, Vanna. Yeah.
Let's all have new names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we can discuss that opportunity with the team.
You know, it would be nice as a theme for the new 7-Elevens on the island to have some artistic flair to them, as Jim is suggesting. Could be very interesting. I'm excited about this one coming back. Okay,
Good.
go ahead.
Gas on the island.
Let's
Great.
see. So I'll just conclude really. We're again in agreement with the staff report recommendation of approval with the stated conditions, and we respectfully request a recommendation of approval by the LPA for the town council.
Thank you, Fred.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else from your team wish to make any sort of presentation? Or are they here for backup?
Mainly for backup.
Excellent. Okay. Any questions for Ken? Anyone? I think we asked you along the way. Thank you very much. Is there any public comment on this case? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Any discussion on this?
Excited.
You know, Ken, I know I said this to you the last 7-Eleven, but I really have to compliment you on your presentations. It's concise. It's very well put together. Thank you. I think you could call me Lillian today. I don't know why I'm being so damn
I was
silly.
thinking Fred, Barney, Wilma.
there you go.
Yeah, I was thinking-
All right. Any discussion on this case? If not, any follow-up questions for the staff? If not, may I have a motion to approve or deny?
I'd make this is Doug Ekman. I'll make a motion for the LPA to recommend approval of DCI 20230-194 with the conditions recommended by staff, with the not actually a condition, but a recommendation that they consider artistic mural on the wall on the back entrance, something similar that we looked at on the other 7-Eleven store up near Times Square.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion by Doug and a second by Jim. Any discussion on the motion? With Patrick being recused, Doug, your vote?
Aye.
Jim?
Yes.
Jane?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Yes. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We look forward to them. Okay,
Not as bad as I
next
thought it was
item
gonna
on the
be.
agenda is a discussion about accessory structures. Does anybody want a quick 2-minute break? Anybody? I do. But you know what, Jane, you could go ahead. Do you want to go on with this?
No,
No,
I
let's
don't
just
have
take,
to.
we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
them go.
Skipped a couple of sections of what?
Okay, members items reports, attorney items report.
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. And the next item on the agenda is the administrative agenda. Does the administration have anything, Amy? Thank you so much. Amy, what is our next scheduled meeting? Do we have that scheduled yet? It's the comp plan meeting?
27th at, oh, I'm sorry.
Today's the 27th, Amy.
12th of March at, at 9, and then March 14th at 11 or somewhere close into that time frame.
In other words, you're not clear on it yet.
Well, the
12th
time
and
keeps
14th.
changing.
Okay, but the 12th and the 14th. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Uh,
LP,
Anita, just piggybacking on that, the content of those meetings, I think Anita mentioned, is that going to be the comp plan?
The 12th is your regular LPA meeting, and then the 14th is going to be comp plan only.
And with regards to you bringing back any of those development agreement options, when would that take place?
That is something we are working on.
Okay.
So I think the first step is really going to be, we need to update the ordinance that allows for this. And then once we, so looking at the material that the attorney had put together, so getting that in the ordinance adopted and then coming up with some structure on how we want it to look. But right now the code doesn't really even, it says you can, but it doesn't tell you much more than that. So giving it some structure with what the attorney is proposing, I think, is the first step. And then we're going to be getting into the nitty gritty on how we want it to look. The last hearing was a joint hearing, where the last hearing where we discussed this, it was a joint hearing. And I didn't get a clear response and a clear understanding of the direction that was desired. So I think that's where I'm a little bit stuck right now. But I think that the first step is adopt some language to allow it through the ordinance with the attorney. And then while we're doing that process, get more details.
Yeah. And you know, just I understand that you guys are swamped right now and you have a lot on your plate. I get it. If there's any way, you know, for the town manager, community development director, if we can provide a little assistance and get this moving quickly, I just think those options would provide a lot of relief and streamline things for people. We had a good example today of how it could help. So if there's any way this can come back to us sooner than later, that'd be great.
Okay.
LPA items and reports. Doug, do you have anything?
No.
How about you, Jim?
I don't want to steal Jane's thunder, but at the last meeting, she brought up the situation at both Pink Shell and at the Rude Shrimp. And has there been any communication? Do we understand how these places continue to operate without the proper approval?
Nancy? Sarah?
I believe I mentioned it to either the town manager or or to Frankie, but it's kind of out of my ballpark at that point.
You know, to me at least, having discussions with multiple people on this issue, I would just encourage the town manager or Frankie to perhaps come to us and explain it. And I think with a little explanation would clarify things. It's a little complicated.
That would be that would be welcomed, and let's make it an official request. So
Then I would like to add that part of that discussion also deal with the Queen of Weed bus that's been located at Pine Square.
I don't have to bring up anything now today.
That's a good
I
point.
just want to add to, I don't know the details. However, one of the primary goals of code enforcement is to bring them into compliance. So there may be some ongoing discussions that I'm not privy to. But I just wanted to add that out there because sometimes, you know, a violation is viewed, but there's a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes, and they can bring you up to speed. Yes, exactly.
Thank you. Jim. Jane, any items?
Just want to say what a great gala the Lovers Key Foundation did over the weekend. It was a very nice event and made lots of money for the Lovers Key, and I think it was just beautifully done on generators only. They still don't have power there, so it was pretty impressive.
Don, anything?
Only with respect to the March meetings, if there's, I think I had mentioned to Amy, I'm going to be remote. So if there's any way to do that via Zoom, it's difficult to hear on the cell phone.
Are you going to be remote on both of them?
Yes.
Don?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't have power that week at our building either, so I'm
Okay.
going to use it for travel.
Okay. Patrick, anything?
Piggybacking on what Jane was saying, other great events that we've had recently, the Mrs. Roper event with
Oh,
over 300
too.
Mrs. Ropers running around town was amazing.
Yes.
It was a great time. And then the PTO for the Beach Elementary School just had a cornhole tournament that was very successful. Great time. Was had by all.
Wonderful.
So another great event, and it's so much fun seeing residents and kind of our seasonal people come back and enjoy all these activities. So great time.
Great.
Good. So I also had the development agreement on my list of topics. So I think it would be good to have it come back to us as soon as possible. I also had the business in Times Square on my list, but it isn't the business. I was talking to Nancy at length about this today. It isn't so much the business. I think you all will remember when after the hurricane, the town council generously decided to waive, or in their emergency ordinance, create an ability for existing beach businesses to operate in temporary situations. You remember Tuna Skin had a trailer, Mom's, The Goods, another good example. Tom at Loyola was the first one out. It also, in that same effort, allowed folks to live in a trailer or a mobile home on their property. And that was the effort and the sincere wonderfulness of their move to let business people try to stay in business and thrive. Beached Whales, another good example. What has happened, unfortunately, is that there is this proliferation of mobile vendors, which the town prohibits. And so something like what you just brought up, Jim, is not a business that was previously on Fort Myers Beach. It's just somebody who's come to lease space. And that is not at all what was in that provision. So I'm saying this in a public meeting to encourage the town council and the town staff to revisit that. And it's going to be difficult because people are going to get mad because it's like, well, I've been doing this. Well, it's not, and maybe it's because there were staff changes, and I mean, there could be a million different reasons, but the purpose behind it was to protect existing businesses on the island as they rebuilt. What I'm afraid is going to happen is that if it continues, so I spoke to a beach business person who is going to rebuild his business, spending $3 to $4 million on his rebuild, and a food business was just permitted adjacent to him. And he said, why should I spend this money on this building if I can continue to operate in a trailer and make just as much?
Right.
So I think that the unanticipated consequence of not staying true to the intent of what the council provided for is it's going to it's going to squash redevelopment because it's going to be a financial decision. If I can make $1 million in a truck, why would I build a structure? And that really worries me. So I don't know if any of you share this opinion.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
I did pull down a copy of the ordinance 2305, and I don't even see how it's being applied properly. there's provisions in here that it's not allowed for short-term rental, that it is supposed to be for pre-existing businesses and residences.
And it's supposed to
And
be, I think, on that property,
That's right.
right?
And
Where
the
they sat.
applicant is supposed to have within 6 months of the date of the ordinance, have applied for permanent structure or some sort of permanent relief, which I
Doesn't
don't see
happen.
that these temporary businesses are doing.
So I can speak to the 6 month that got changed after we adopted that by the state. So basically the state stepped in and extended that.
It still says the holder of the permit
Mhm.
is supposed to have applied, not applying it to a rental situation.
Oh, yeah, no, that was not the intent of it.
What was
but
it changed
just the
to,
time
Sarah?
extended.
I think it's 3 years.
It's 3 years now?
Yeah.
Wow, that really
By
sets
state
things
But you know
back.
what, the point behind it, so I was telling Patrick and some of these folks that were here with the neighborhood group presenting for 7-Eleven, we're at this event that I went to. um, and it was all planners and, you know, it was that world of development and marketing, and it was so fascinating. But someone made a comment that if things didn't start to move, if there wasn't a push to get folks to do something, all hell was going to break loose, was the comment that was made. And I thought, what a curious comment. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've thought that it is this, you know, how long are you going to let this sit before you say, hey, I know you're waiting for insurance money, but it's an eyesore to our community. Hey, I know you've got a permit for a trailer, but what's your plan? So if, as we encourage redevelopment on the island, I think we have to be consistent. And this right now is a sticky wicket, I think, for the town.
And doesn't it boil down to code enforcement? I understand they can do it for 3 years, but I mean, if code enforcement is looking at a business that was not on the island before, that seems pretty cut and dried to that ordinance.
Yeah, and I think that they should still have their use permits required.
Right.
So in that way, we should be validating whether they were here or not previously.
And there's a whole section on the town's website and in the town code that says, how do you operate a business on Fort Myers Beach? And mobile vendors are strictly prohibited. They're not permitted in the town. They're permitted in this emergency situation. Like I said, a very generous spirit on behalf of the town council when they decided to do that. But it's gotten morphed into something that I really believe is, and there's a particular one that I happen to not be fond of, not because I care about what it's a look that as you're talking about the redevelopment of the beach, you have to decide what you want your community to look like. And
A family island or something else.
so, okay, so if you all are in agreement, I hope that the council will hear that message, and maybe I'll go to the next meeting and say that.
Well,
Okay.
we'd like, you're making the formal request to have either the town manager or Frankie or both attend our next meeting.
When's the
Yeah.
next town council meeting?
Monday.
Monday, okay.
Yeah. I think
All right.
we're-
And what was the other question I had, I was not following the conversation at the council meeting about if the LPA votes unanimously on something and then nobody disagrees for 10 days and it automatically becomes real. And I did not follow. I think what they're trying to do is loosen up administrative variances, but it sounded like they were creating something. Did you all listen to this?
Anita, I followed up with Jim. I
What
think
is-
what
what
Jim,
is it?
my understanding is Jim was trying to make the council meetings quicker. So, and what I told him, he was asking maybe certain ways we could do that. And I gave him the Collier County example, which is to me the best example, and we could adopt this very quickly in this town. So if a petition goes before the planning commission over there and the county commission, if they have a recommendation of approval from staff, If they have no objection from the neighbors and they get a unanimous recommendation of approval from the planning commission, then it can go on the summary agenda,
Consent
The
agenda.
the consent
Okay.
agenda, yeah,
Hmm.
for the county commissioners. But the county commissioners, if anything arises from those two hearings in between, any county commissioner can ask to pull that agenda item and have a discussion on it. But if no one pulls it, it's a quick approval with all the other administrative.
Does that
consent
include
agenda.
everything, a CPD?
Yes.
Whoa, wow.
Again, it's got to be, it's a
It's a
pretty
high
tough
standard.
threshold because
Mhm.
it's recommendation from staff, no objection, unanimous recommendation for approval. So I forwarded that to Jim and I said, you've got a perfect example in Collier County, how they do it. We could adopt something similar here. And,
Interesting.
and I think it makes sense. It
It's
makes the
interesting.
meetings quicker.
I understand it better now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarasota County also has the same system that works fairly well.
But if somebody gets up at public comment and says, I hate the drums, then it has to continue its regular process.
Yeah, if there's been any kind of reported either at the previous hearing or someone sends in an email or a letter,
Mhm.
then that's an objection and they have to pull the full.
Well, that's very
full
interesting.
hearing.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my items. Okay.
I
um,
think everyone need, Amy.
I'm sorry.
So we just need you to motion and second vote that somebody's going to show up at Monday's meeting and represent the LPA with what you're going to
I'll
ask
make a motion if you'd like. Motion for delegating authority to Anita on behalf of the LPA to go talk to council about these temporary uses and having a better long-term plan.
Seconded.
I can't see my schedule, so if I cannot go, is there an alternate that could, Patrick, can you go if there's an alternate?
Can't make it
You can't do it. How about, I mean, James,
I
I
should be
know
able
you're
to
good.
make it.
I'll go.
You can do it?
You
I
could do
can
it?
go, yeah. That
Okay,
would be
Don
great.
could do it.
So I'll
Okay.
amend my motion, Anita or Don.
Okay, thank you so much. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, next item is community development items and reports, which we get to the,
Madam Chair, I think you skipped the LPA attorney.
and I did it intentionally.
Well, I have no items.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks for keeping me on track. By the way, could I just bring up one other tiny issue? You know, the traffic study that the 7-Eleven did. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I have looked at so many of those traffic studies over the years, and why in the world, as soon as it says constraint road, does it even matter?
Yeah.
I mean,
really.
it's like, why do we even have it as a requirement? It's costly, it's time consuming, it's a heck of a lot of paper, and it just gets, I mean, there's not even a question about it. Anyway, okay, think about that, Sarah, will you? Next, because it seems just ludicrous. I mean, and since day one, I've asked the same question. Constrained road, what does that mean? We don't have to count it. You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Sarah?
Anita,
Yeah.
constraint road and also a roadway managed by Lee County, not the town.
Exactly.
So that's the other important
Exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. We don't have any control over it anyway.
Okay, Sarah.
Okay.
Since Nancy has no items.
I'd like to handle this more of as a discussion than a presentation because I'm
Alright.
curious about your thoughts on these issues. So right now we kind of loosely define accessory structures, and accessory structures, if they're a pool with a stem wall over 4 feet, then they're required to meet the requirements for setbacks as the primary structure. But it doesn't apply to sheds or garages or any other accessory structure that might be bigger than a pool elevated 4 feet above grade. It also doesn't really speak to whether an accessory unit is an accessory structure or if that's considered a primary structure. So that's kind of where this conversation, this is what I'm interested in. Do we need to look more carefully at our accessory structure setbacks? Because right now you can put up a garage 5 feet from the property line, but you couldn't put a pool that was elevated 4.5 feet above grade that close. It would have to meet the same setbacks as the house. So does this make sense? And then the other thing that I'm trying to work through is if you have an accessory apartment, if it's an owner occupied unit, which means it's large enough to allow that additional, no, an owner occupied is small enough that you don't have the density to meet that, then so it's a smaller lot typically where you're doing the roundup. So you can use half of the right of way or half of the canal and get to the density that you need, but the lot itself doesn't contain enough space for 2 dwelling units. So in order to mitigate the impacts of an additional dwelling unit there, the owner is required to live on site. So these owner occupied units aren't required to be attached. So you could have 2 houses on these properties. There are no requirements for how this looks. We don't know, we don't have any information about what those setbacks should be. Should it be the primary structure? Should that be an accessory structure? There aren't really any requirements for that. And then if it's not one requiring owner occupancy, so assuming it's a larger lot that can get the density, it has to look like a single family residence. So why are they treated differently? Previously, we've had conversations about connectivity between structures. There are issues with how you connect and what that looks like. If it's connected, it's required to meet the primary structure setback. If it's disconnected, is it? I'm not sure. Staff is not clear. In the past, when we had a joint session, my goodness, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, a long time ago, we talked about whether the council and the LPA at that time wanted to allow detached structures. Like if there was an accessory unit, could it be detached or did it need to be attached? At that time, council and LPA said, yeah, we'd like to see them attached, but nothing was put into the code. It wasn't like a unanimous decision. It was sort of a policy, but nothing was put in the code. And we're not sure if everybody still stands in the same place or if there would be any interest in changing this so it's a little bit more clear for staff, because we're not sure how to require this. If somebody has a big house and then they've always had an accessory structure and that accessory structure was way off in the corner of the lot.
What are we talking, a shed, or are we talking somebody lives in it?
Well, they're sorry, I'm talking about accessory units right now. So an accessory unit. So in this instance, they're all elevated. Somebody's building an accessory unit that's at least 2 stories tall. We're not talking about a little at-grade shed. So,
yeah,
the big question is, how should staff look at these? Are they required to meet the primary structure setbacks if they're a unit? Or is that considered an accessory structure? Do they need to be attached? Or does it just need to be a unified design? And how do we determine that?
I enjoyed your little summary and write up. I think those are all valid questions. And especially in light of a recent case we had with an elevated pool, and there's history there. And also, personally, I also took an apartment that I had downstairs that was legal and created a separate garage and put the unit on top. And I chose to connect it. And one of the reasons I could have just kept it not connected, and I could have had a smaller setback than my neighbor. But again, recognition that it was still going to be pretty high up in the air, I wanted to meet the full setback and not, it was intentional to be a good neighbor to those folks. So I think those are all valid questions, and you're completely right. A lot of these, there's a difference between a shed on the ground and an accessory unit that obviously, if it's going to be brand new, it's going to be way up in the air. And there's also a distinction to me with these elevated pools. That's a whole other issue. So I think those are all valid questions. I think I'm happy to talk about those. And
But what do you think about it? Should it be connected?
Well, I could address those starting with the pools. So to me, the pools, it was a controversial issue at the town, and I kind of just followed it. I was in the LPA at that time, so I kind of followed it through the media and some of the stuff. But when I look at it, my understanding is,
connected, not connected, in the end, what we said is, if it's going to be an elevated pool, it's got to meet the primary home setback. And I think the reason is technically you could separate it and say it's accessory, and you would get closer to your neighbor, or you would get closer to the bay or the canal. And I think everybody recognized that those are pretty big imposing structures, and they do affect someone's view shed from the neighboring property.
Sure.
So at least personally, I believe that, and never say never, but unless there's really exceptional circumstances for us to grant the variance on an elevated pool, I think it should meet the primary house structure, unless, again, exceptional circumstances, because there should always be that option of you can build it on the ground and you can be less of an imposition on your neighbor. So that's the first issue. I think an accessory unit, if it's going to be a livable unit, and again, if we look at why we create setbacks, and it's to address compatibility issues and any kind of activity that takes place, the activity that happens in an accessory unit is the same activity that happens in a house. Okay. If I build a shed for my tools, no one's living in there. There's no music, there's no activity, there's none of that. If I've got an in-law suite, well, my aunt or my grandma, in my case, it's my aunt, will be living there. So there will be activity just like in the house. So again, I would say in that case, it would make sense to retain the same setback as the house.
But what if you had a prior one that was separated and there is no way to connect it?
And
Like your
that's
garage?
Either it's non-conforming if it still exists, or in that case, yes, if there is no, and that's why we create some flexibility of, if you can't put it elsewhere and for you to maintain the same square footage or the same footprint, you need to have that little leeway. I think that's fine.
I have another question.
Oh.
Say it is a garage and your garage is not attached to your house. Do you now have to build a structure from your garage to attach to your house to make it attach? Or is the fact that the garage goes with the house, it's on the same property, and it's above the garage?
I'm not sure.
So you have a house and a garage.
And the only reason I kind of got swayed is that I automatically thought of the other one that we've had on the sterile. That
Oh,
there
yes,
was a lot of
yes, yes.
discussion. So let me focus on your question and not think
So
about
you
that
have a
one.
house and a garage.
Okay.
The garage has an accessory unit on top.
Okay.
Does it have to connect now to the house? Or it used to have to connect?
Well, I think right now, at least my interpretation of the code is, if it meets if it's separate and not connected, it would not have to meet the primary structure setback. It could meet the accessory structure setback. So that's where I was alluding
why
to,
we need to have-
maybe that doesn't make sense, if it's connected, it's got to meet the primary structure as soon as it's connected.
I have an elevated pool question for you.
Mhm.
If it's connected, you said it should meet the primary structure setback.
Mhm.
So what if the primary structure setbacks are from 1983, 384? In other words.
And again, that's
Yeah.
when I said never say never. There's going to be
Right.
some exceptional circumstances, and we do so. We also provide variances for homes with reduced setbacks, and again, that's under exceptional circumstances.
Right.
So I would say, in my mind, at least an elevated pool, you apply the same rules. You can grant the variance, but it's got to be under exceptional circumstances, and it's got to be, again, in my mind, the minimum feasible variance to allow that use. If we are allowing an elevated pool with a big pool deck that's going to have an outdoor kitchen on it, and that outdoor kitchen could go elsewhere on the property, I would say that's a little different also. So that's what,
So along to your question, even if the primary structure was built in 1983, you said, it would be whatever's new would have to meet the new setback. So it's the same instance as Widgeon Terrace.
Right.
Like they had to ask for a
Ask for a
variance. Yeah.
right. That's why I was asking.
Mhm.
Other comments to Sarah on this topic?
I did like the comment that you said that, you know, if it's a shed and it's ground level or some kind of a, you know, a little pool enclosure or something, that maybe that's treated differently because it's ground level and something that's elevated, then maybe it becomes the primary structure setback as soon as you elevate that you.
Sarah, I know you're trying to get some clarity on this, but I just went round and round and round in my head about it. So I don't even know what to tell you how I feel about it yet. I'm sorry to say that, but it just was, I wasn't crystal clear on it.
Well, it really comes down to code enforcement always, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you have an accessory structure somebody's living in that really is a shed, I mean, it really becomes enforcement.
Well, and I don't know that we're as concerned about an instance where there's a code enforcement issue. What we're dealing with a lot right now is people coming in with these accessory units, and in the
Wanting it to be a whole
past,
house.
well, and they have to be a whole house.
Yeah.
And in the past, they didn't have, you know, they treated them as accessory
Right.
structures. They maybe didn't meet setbacks. They weren't connected to the house. And what applies?
Yeah.
And now they have to be above base flood, right?
Yeah, so they have to
you're
be
on the corner of the
tall.
lot.
They're big,
Yeah.
you know, if you're
Yeah, and blocking people's views
exactly.
yeah.
And so for our code to say that if you know you have a bigger lot and you have enough space for the density, that it has to look like a single family home. But if you're maybe on a smaller lot and you don't have the density, you can do whatever you want.
That's not right.
That's where I think we should. That's
Law.
one that's to me pretty easy that they should be applied consistently.
Yeah.
And I certainly agree. There are always variances. There are always things to come before us to consider. But I think generally they ought to be applied consistently. Big
Yeah.
lot, little lot, accessory structure.
Why don't we task Sarah to suggest, clean this up and suggest the ordinance or whatever to clean this up, and then we look at it and then modify it if we need to, and then present it to recommend council adopt it.
Well, the thing is, she would have to come up with things that have happened in the past or things that are going to come to us with things that have happened because of the hurricane. So like you have the 2 accessory units or whatever they are on like Palermo Street on the corner. You have the Gulf front houses that had several guest houses that were on the
Around the
Stero
property.
corners.
Like
Right. You have the ground level accessory units that may have been washed out or may still be there. And so, I mean, there's,
Or you have
and,
Rick
or you
Lowry's,
have,
garage.
well, or you have a house with a garage separate that doesn't connect now. Would we require them to connect?
Well,
There's a
I
lot
was
of-
thinking of, new construction going forward, I guess. But you're also talking about people that are reconstructing.
Right.
That's right.
That's, I think, going to be, well, you can't just have an accessory house in today's world building forward if you didn't have one before, right?
But if they had an accessory unit and they now want to do them as 2 separate structures, they can.
Oh, then,
But you know,
that
and
just instantly rattles me. I
Yeah.
don't, but go ahead.
so I mean, that's sort of the issue, and that's what we're seeing. People
Yeah.
coming forward and saying, well, we want to have our house and then we want to have a separate accessory structure, and then what setbacks does that meet? Do we require the connection? Does it have to look like a single unit? I mean, like, what requirements are we really going to make them meet? And what makes sense? Like, is this something that matters very much to the town? Is this something that doesn't matter?
Are the accessory structures that people are asking for or referring to, were they sheds or were these accessory structures mother-in-law apartments?
They were accessory units. I apologize. I keep saying accessory structures, but I'm really referring to accessory units.
Okay.
So they have verified units.
They were living, people were living.
Yes.
So I'm not sure I understand this. So if someone has a legal unit
are we saying they can't build it as a separate structure?
The way the code is written, if it's a legal unit and they're below the density, so if it's a non-conforming for density legal unit, they can build it as a separate structure. But if they're actually conforming for density, they have to build it as a single cohesive looking home.
And when it's a single cohesive home, can they have two separate kitchens? Can it
Yeah,
be two
they're
separate?
they're allowed to have
Okay.
they're allowed to have the full 2 units, but from the exterior, it has to give the appearance of a single family
like
home.
personally, I don't like that. I like the fact that if it's 2 units that you're allowed to have, you should be able to put 2 structures if you want. If you want to connect them, fine. If you want to put them all within one house, fine. But you should have that design flexibility.
Do they have to have the same sort of setbacks as the
setback.
principal
Yeah,
structure?
yeah.
Okay,
That's the
that
key.
that makes it almost impossible then, doesn't it?
It does in
Well,
a lot of cases.
It
I'll
depends
give
on the
you-
lot size.
Yeah, I'll give you an
Yeah.
example, Anita. I've got a lot and a half, and I was able to put that at as a taking the apartment that I had downstairs, I got destroyed, putting it on top of a garage, and we connected by deck. And it's going to be a true in-law suite in that it's going to be my wife's aunt that moves in full time. But there's great value, we love her and she's looking forward to moving here, but just having a bit of a separation, and it's going to be connected by a deck, and it won't be a big separation, but it gives her independence and her
Sure, but
space.
if it wasn't your aunt, it'd be a great rental unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
what
And if
my
it was in
concern
the
would be is
setbacks.
how does this dynamically change a neighborhood?
But if it was legal and it wasn't my aunt, I would be allowed to rent it either way. So why not this obligation of connecting it? I'm not quite sure what that does.
But I don't get the connecting, but I do get the setback piece. And again, I
Yeah.
think it's because of the flood and because of base flood elevation, because we have a lot of canals and a lot of those had little structures. I mean, we've heard some of them, but they've had a little house out back, or maybe it was kind of a shed at some point that got added onto, and somebody, maybe grandma lived there, mother-in-law, whatever. But the point is, if you build that back now, you got to go 10, 15 feet in the air. Guess what? You just blocked your neighbor's views. Yeah, I mean, so you definitely, I think, got to go with the setbacks.
Yeah.
Kind of like, was it Coral or Bayview or what was that house that
Lonnie Lettieri's
went
house.
this way and this way?
Yeah.
Lonnie's house.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was garages bumped up against
Whoa.
the property line.
We could all think about this some more, Sarah. This is a
You
complicated
could
one.
bring back something, but you got to bring back lots of scenarios is the problem.
But I think the consistency, right? I mean, that question, you kind of, it sounds like we hear
Yes.
pretty
Yeah,
unanimous.
I
but we
feel
need to
I
be
feel like I
consistent.
hear some consistency here that
And
it wouldn't
do we
be.
have consistency on
The lot.
the setbacks?
Yeah, I
I
would
think so on the setbacks.
That's a
If
propose.
it's a living unit, I think what I'm hearing is then it should comply with the setbacks of the
Yeah.
primary structure.
But
that's
if
what I
you
would
had it prior and your house survived, but your accessory did not, where does the accessory go without moving your house? That's a hardship.
It may not happen.
Well, if they can't make
You
the
may lose it.
setback, then the new
Apply for a
setback,
variance.
They would have to apply for a variance.
Variance, right?
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Or could we make it where, just like we
Well,
we
with that
did with
grade.
non-conforming lots, where someone doesn't lose their use, and as long as they
Yeah.
rebuild it no bigger,
Right.
we could grant them administrative variances. That could be a way,
With
to me,
larger
that kind of makes
setbacks.
sense. Is first of all, you look at your lot, can you conform and meet the
kitchen.
setbacks and still have the same square footage? If the answer is yes, well, you move that building. If the
Well, it's
answer is
pretty clear
no,
It's a hardship.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
and if the answer is no, then you can maybe through an administrative process saying, I am not exacerbating what was there. I'm just rebuilding the exact same footprint, and I'm not, there's nowhere else I can put it. That'd be a good solution.
So, okay, this opens up a whole nother can of worms. So if you have a duplex, now you can just split the duplex and build 2 houses on your lot?
Look at the top of Jefferson Street. what
Look
they
at
did.
my street,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a definite no in our comp plan previously, but it is everywhere now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the code allows it.
It doesn't, or somebody took it out or somebody misplaced it, but it used to be if they commingled, you could not separate it.
Yeah, and that's no longer in the code. And people are resplitting lots
They're
and
re-splitting lots.
yes, and our code doesn't currently
Remember the
prevent
last
that.
hearings we had on that?
Oh, I
People
sure
that
did.
had-
Absolutely.
We only allowed the people that had plans already designed to split the lots and do it that way.
Yep.
So
And
you're
then,
talking about the old provision that used to say that if you built a property that crossed two,
Mhm.
like a property line,
Mhm.
it's a property line,
Mhm.
and there was either you built a single unit or a single house, or you built a duplex, then you could not go back and say two separate lots, two separate homes.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember that too. And
How
I
was
just
that
don't know
taken out of
how,
the code?
I do not recall
don't
how
know.
that got taken out.
I
Neither do
think
I.
it was
I don't
misplaced.
But you
think
know,
that it
it's
was.
contrary to the comp plan's desire to limit density because you're
Exactly.
increasing density
Mhm.
every time you split the lots.
Yep.
So maybe we need to revisit that.
Would SB 250 allow us to?
If it's more restrictive or burdensome, I mean, you have that issue that you do have to address. I mean, you might be able to just talk about it, but you really would not be able to propose it or
You know, this is
Well,
always
I don't know, how's it burdensome if you had a duplex, you have two units. You have two separate units, you have two separate units, but I don't see it burdensome to say if you have a duplex, you have to keep it a duplex.
Well, but it's the key thing is what you can do with that now with two separate
lots.
Buildings on
Well,
two
if
separate
you had
lots, you
two
can
separate
resell
lots,
them.
that's it, But if you're trying to split them now, that's a different situation. I don't see that that's burdensome.
So what we're looking at, what we're talking about, I think what we're talking about is when we have these pretty small prior platted lots, like in the older subdivisions. And in some of those instances, people combined them and put a single dwelling unit on those, just had a bigger lot and they stuck one home on
And
it.
They didn't consolidate the lots. They
The-
kept them as two separate lots.
It's unclear. No, it's
unclear.
It's unclear. There's no history regarding whether those were purposefully combined or tax appraiser combined. I mean, sometime in some communities, the tax appraiser combines them automatically. In some communities, it has to be sort of requested to combine them, or they stay as separate lots. As far as I can tell, every instance where somebody owns two lots next to each other and they have a single unit across them, they appear to be combined. I don't see any instances where those are separate. However, when people demo that structure, that single unit, and re-subdivide into two separate units, they get more units.
Yep.
So they go from one unit back to two units.
Right.
I mean, they are required to demo the building before they're granted anything. They're not granted the subdivision of the property until the building is demoed. But at this time, that's the way the code's written.